Skype.
Gotcha,
Yes.
Simba.
All right, guys. So this is our first episode of We Are ESO podcast. I'm going to start over for the intro. I am here with Lord Fangrush, King Richard, and Lefty Lucy. And these guys are all experienced PvP players who have been playing this game for a really long time, since I'm pretty sure most of you guys have been playing since the beginning, right? No one has joined later?
Since beta.
Since beta. So all these guys have a lot of experience, and I decided to reach out to these guys so that we can do a podcast. We don't really have too many podcasts happening in the ESO community, and I thought maybe that we could put one together and start doing this maybe bi-weekly or once a month, twice a month, depending on how the community reacts to it and the support that we get from the community. We'll see how far we go with this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let everyone say a little bit about themselves, because for some people, most of you guys should know these guys. If you watch PvP, if you're into ESO PvP, you should know Lefty Lucy, King Richard, and Fangrush. And if you don't, I'm going to let them just say a little bit about themselves, how long they've been playing the game, the classes they play, what they're into. So start off with from Lefty Lucy, and we'll work up towards me. Lefty Lucy, say a little bit about yourself, and unless you take the floor.
All right, guys, what's up? I am Lefty. As Cypher said, I've been playing since beta. I play on a DK. I main a DK. Pretty much only play my DK because I can't stand leveling, so that's my thing. But I like the small scale PvP. I think you'll find that's a similar trend with all of us here. We like the skill-based small scale PvP, and I have a special place in my heart for Werewolf. I've been playing Werewolf since beta, but since before we even had any skills and stuff, so you know me as the Werewolf. People call me the Werewolf King, people call me the pack leader. I don't know what it is, but I'm the DK and the Werewolf King, I guess. I don't know. That's what I'm trying not to say King because we got Richard here. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I'm not drunk yet.
Okay. We got a $21 donation from Too Much Viagra. And he says, I like that you guys are doing this. Hopefully Zos listens and addresses your concerns/suggestions. Thank you so much for the support. I just want to make it clear for the viewers that all the tips and donations that we receive during the podcast will be given to all the casters. So if you would like to support the podcast in particular, all donations received during the podcast will be given to the casters so that we can continue to do this and hopefully expand and get better graphics and stuff like that. Richard, I'm gonna let you take the floor. Say a little bit about yourself and go ahead.
What's up, everybody? King Richard. Most of you guys know me from YouTube and Twitch. That's what I focus on, and I started YouTube and Twitch with ESO. I've been playing since beta. I'm mainly known as a Magicka Sorcerer, but I've branched off and played Magicka Templar, Magicka Nightblade, Stamina Nightblade, everything but DK at this point. So that's pretty much my ESO background, and if you guys don't know me, twitch.tv/KingRichard15, and you can also find my YouTube link on my channel.
Thank you very much, King Richard. Now Fangrush, Lord Fangrush, I'm sorry. Man in the suit, go ahead.
I'm Fangrush. I've been playing pretty deep in the beta. I was very early on in it. Played all the way through it when it was terribly buggy early on, and all the way up to release. And I stopped playing for a few months. Came back about 4 months ago or something, and I've been going since then. I started streaming then as well. I've only streamed ESO, and I play just Sork, really. I played Magic Sork all the way up till I came back. When I came back, I went Stam Sork.
Thank you very much, Fangrush. I really appreciate it. Fangrush was actually one of the first players I met in the game. I was level 15 and ran into his group in Cyrodiil, and that's how I met him. So, old timer. My name is Cypher. I have been playing since beta. I played a DK for about 6 or 7 months, and then I played a Nightblade and a Sorcerer, and I'm currently slowly leveling up my Templar, who should be V16 in 2018, hopefully, if things go well with the grinding. And so I try to play all the classes. I've been playing PvP. I play solo PvP. 99% of my time on this game has been doing solo PvP, and 1% has been running daily so that I can PvP. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate the support and all the players that are here. I see a lot of familiar faces and I see a lot of new faces as well. So we're going to have a topics of discussion, and I'm just going to go through them really quickly. We'll be discussing the champion system and the upcoming champion point cap. We'll be discussing Imperial City and Cyrodiil PvP, class balance and itemization, and future of PvP, followed by Q&A and open discussion. So we have a lot on our plate to discuss. We're going to try to do this in about, let's say, an hour and a half. We might go longer, we might go shorter. It just depends on a few things. But for now, we're going to talk about the champion system and the CP cap. So I put together these topics earlier today. We didn't really get too much time to think about them beforehand. But, there is a lot that we have to say regarding these topics. And I'm sure, once we spark up some conversation, we're going to really get into it. So let's talk about the CP cap in particular, just to start off the discussion. There is a 501 point CP cap coming in the next Orsinium update, which is less than a month from now. It is less than a month, right? It's coming November
10th, I think.
November 10th, so about a month from now. 501 was the cap. It was placed after looking at the statistics of average CP count. And I just want to ask you, King Richard, just to put you on the spot first. What do you think about this cap? Like, what's your opinion regarding the CP cap?
Well, anybody who's been tuning into my channel, I go on, I call them poo-poo rants when I rant about things that I don't like within ESO. And one of the things has been the direction of PvP. However, there was a Legend 2v2 tournament yesterday, and this patch I haven't dueled at all. Like, honestly, I haven't really dueled anybody. But this patch, I'm noticing that when I do duel, sometimes I lose to people that I've never lost to before, and that's simply because of the champion system. A lot of people have a lot more champion points than I do, especially because I lost about 30 days testing 1.7 on PTS. But now that I'm seeing that they're going to put a cap on it, even though there's no PvP coming in this next patch, I think I'm going to be able to get back into the game competitively because, even before when Cyrodiil was Cyrodiil, I never took keeps. I can't tell you the last time I sieged a keep. And when people were out sieging keeps, I'm somewhere looking for a duel because that's what I enjoy doing. So now that the champion cap is coming back, or that they're putting the champion cap in place, I'm 100% for it just because it's going to give us people who like to duel a reason to duel again. Now I have a reason to be competitive. This patch is no reason to be competitive because you're going to lose to somebody that's, that just started the game if they have more champion points than you. They can literally just buy an account, and if it has more champion points than you, that person might beat you. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that champion point cap. It's 100% needed.
Lefty?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Richard was saying, literally all of it. So, the thing that kind of annoys me about it. So, again, I want to reiterate, champion point cap is amazing. They should have had this. This is the problem. The problem I have is they should have had this from the start. Because now you got people like, I don't know their names, but they got people like 1,200 champion points or something. Like, you've got a lot of people that are already above.
Over 2,000.
Okay, over 2,000. Well, that's even worse. But anyway, you got people that are already above the cap at this point. And so when they implement this cap, those people that are above it, then they're going to get dropped down to the cap, but essentially they'll be capped. And then the next time they raise the cap, those guys will probably still be right at the cap again. So everyone who is below the cap, which includes myself, we're going to have to work. And as far as I understand, the way that the scaling is working, the way that they scale the levels now, it's going to be harder to get your champion points as you get more. It's going to be even harder for us who aren't at the cap to get there. So it's making it even harder for us to catch up to those people who have a crap ton of champion points. And then they're just going to raise the cap again. Those guys didn't have to do any work during this Orsinium patch. They'll raise the cap again, and then those guys are back at cap, and then everyone else who worked to get to the cap will now have to start over again and probably get another 500 champion points or so. So like I said, the champion point cap is needed, but it should have been implemented from the start. And I don't think I agree with the fact that these people get dropped down to the cap, but they also retain their 2,000 champion points. So when the cap gets raised to 1,000, they'll have 1,000 immediately. And then when the cap gets raised to 1,500, they'll have 1,500 immediately. And then 2,000, etc. So that's the one thing that I didn't like about it.
That's assuming they raise it in that particular order. Now, the thing I'm thinking about right now is the ways that ZeniMax should raise it from 500 to whatever the next number is. It should be almost scaled to a point where if someone is like playing the game every day from day one of the cap, once the cap is implemented, let's say someone has 501 champion points and they're playing the game every day, by the time the cap is raised again, they shouldn't have to go out and grind to reach the cap. They should sort of be really close to hitting the cap again once the cap is raised. That way there isn't like a point in time where it's like, you know, after the cap is raised, a lot of players, like 2 to 3 weeks, they'll go out and they'll just grind until they hit the cap and then they get back into the game, because it's going to feel like a chore every time the cap is raised, because everyone's going to want to be at the cap to be competitive. And I really want everyone to be able to hit the cap at a reasonable pace so that we can be on the same level. Now, before the champion system came in, everyone was at the same level. Once you were V14, you had your passes, you had your gear, you were at the same level as everyone else. But now that there's champion points, there are some players who are just naturally stronger than other players. And it's not about time spent, it's more about what you're doing with your time. Players that are grinding zombies for XP, racking up hundreds of champion points, are stronger than players who just actually play the game, quest, do dungeons, dailies, whatever, because of the system. Fangrush, I'll let you give your opinion on the topic.
Sure. Yeah, I've been posting about this one a little bit too on the forums. I think I probably have the highest CP here too, and it's not super high. I'm in like the 500s. So my take on this,
before you continue, just so everyone has a perspective, Lefty, how many CP points do you have on average? Like,
I'm in the low 300s, somewhere low 300s.
King Richard?
395 exactly.
I am at 397. Fangrush, you said you have a little bit over 500, right?
Yeah, like 550,
okay,
something like that. So I almost feel biased with the opinion, but anyway, my take on it, I agree with what Lefty said, that, you know, mishandled from the get-go. And you can be a bit forgiving about that because they implemented a very long-term system not knowing how it would go. But with that said, it's a two-part thing for me. One is I don't like how the cap, I think 500 is kind of low for starters because, yeah, they're implementing it right around the corner, but we have no idea how long a season's going to be. It could be until next March or something, or next February before it's kicked up to like 700 or something. I really don't like that. I would have preferred the system always been in place that, you know, they had like a running at like an average point. Say 400 was their median for the season, and once you got to 400, you would start to it would take a lot more XP to start gaining CP from that point forward, and it would just get worse and worse. It would get ridiculous basically to gain CP that season. Something like that would have been good. And on the reverse end, you know, it would be easier to gain. My biggest thing on this issue isn't even the cap, though. It's really bad for new players. And I think all of us here, we all love ESO. We want people to come in. We want the game to grow. And the biggest problem with that is the CP system. It's such just a difficult thing to come into. You come into PvP. When you finally figure out what the hell the champion system is as a new player, you're like, wow, I'm screwed. I am so far behind. So it needs to be an extreme catch-up mechanism, really extreme. And by next season, maybe new players coming in start out with X amount of CP, and then they amp up that catch-up mechanic. Like, all players really need to catch up. Like, if 500 was their running, say that's their average point, it should be something like 500. And maybe the cap, in my opinion, maybe it's a little higher, 6, 7. It's whatever. Those numbers, they differ by player. I think on PC it should be a little higher because most PvE, PvP players that are real active, they're in about that 300 to 400 range. But once you hit that wall, what do you have to really look forward to, and that was the beauty of the champion system that they kind of are losing by throwing in a cap. And on top of that, I think they're honestly going to lose subscriptions. Like, people subscribed for that stuff. They liked subscribing to get a little more XP and stuff while they went out grinding, and that's going to hurt ESO from a business perspective. So I think it's a bad decision on their part from a business standpoint. And I think there's some missed things they could do to help new players, but they also have to keep in mind those people that log in and play every day, because they might just hit a wall on this CP system now with the cap, and they'll feel like they lost something that they had, that they enjoyed, you know, jumping into. So that's my take on it.
I just want to say thank you so much for the $50 donation, Devil's Own Pal. He says, "What's up, bro? Been out of town and work. Haven't had a chance to play the new expansion. There's already another one coming out." Yes, Orsinium is actually coming out very soon, less than a month from now, which it's good to see that they're pumping out content. But we'll get into specific content-related things later in the podcast. So regarding the cap, a lot of you guys gave, you know, your opinions regarding the cap. You know, you said there should have been a cap from the get-go. The catch-up mechanic needs to be extreme. So what do you think should be done now for the future of the game? What do you think should be done now to help the cap be implemented well, to make sure the catch-up mechanic is done right? And then for newer players, I'm going to be honest, if I was a new player coming into the game and I want to be competitive in PvP, and I see that there is hundreds of champion points to be that I have to gain if I want to be on par with everyone else, you know, how do you get that new player to be willing to sign up for the CP grind?
Yeah, I actually have a buddy in real life. I tried to get him to play the game. He leveled up. I was helping him level. We got to PvP a little bit. He really enjoyed the combat. He stopped playing the game entirely because he couldn't compete, because he was a new player. He started on PC, brand new. Like, he's not playing this game. He's not going to play this game until this champion point imbalance is gone. So, like, this 500 point, and I agree with Fangrush entirely. Like, they're going to lose subs by capping this, but they were losing subs by not capping it. Like, they lost my friend. Like, he's not going to play this game now, or at least not until this imbalance is gone. So it's like, it's a double-edged sword. You lose subs if you cap it. You lose subs if you don't cap it. It's just the nature of the system. But essentially what they need to do moving forward, what they need to do is, and I agree with Fangrush entirely, they have to make the catch-up mechanic drastic enough such that a new player can invest just a little bit of his time and not feel like he just walks into PvP and then just gets slammed around the battlefield, and just all he does is spend his time respawning. So like whatever, and it's got, so I think the solution is a better catch-up mechanic if they want to keep this 500 point cap. Either that, or they have to drop the cap even more. But I don't know. I'm not sure what the best route to go is. What do you think?
I kind of see what you're talking about. Like, they put a cap. There's a cap in place to stop people from from having too much of an advantage. But still, even though there's a cap in place, you still have to work to reach the cap. And then once you reach the cap, there's still those players who are, you know, when a new cap comes, they're already going to be at it. So there's still this constant mechanic on people who are behind, struggling to catch up. And that's the main issue with the champion tree, is that people are still going to struggle to catch up, even with a cap.
So,
because for me, I know season 1 for me, I'm at 395. I need 100 champion points, a little bit over 100 champion points to catch up to the cap. So I'm not going to have a problem catching up to the cap. But if this is the first cap, then what's the next cap? Is it 1,000? I mean, I'm not going to catch up to 1,000 next cap. So that's just going to continue to be an issue with the champion tree.
So one idea that some people have posted about was to have like because for me the main struggle for the champion system is PvP. Like, that's the only concern I have. I don't really mind if I'm in a PvE group and someone in my group has 1,000 champion points. Like, whatever, he'll get us better DPS and heals. I'm pretty sure like hardcore trial players who try to be on the leaderboard, it could affect them because that's competitive PvE, and that you get to the point where it's like oh, maybe this trial team is performing the trial a lot faster than us because they have more points than us, and we're trying our best, but we don't have as many points. Like, but I don't see too much of that discussion happening, so it doesn't seem to be a big concern. It might be. I might be a little ignorant to the PvE side of things, but for me, the main focus is PvP. So one idea that could kind of maybe address the issue. It's sort of a band-aid. It doesn't fully address it, but it kind of compromises, which is having a campaign either without champion points or like a 100-point cap, 200-point cap, like a very low cap, so where you can spend some points in that campaign, but you don't have to have hundreds to be competitive.
I think that's a good idea, and Rage Killing in chat even mentioned like a battle level type system with champion points. So like if you don't have 100 champion points and you go into this campaign that you're talking about where it's a 100 champion point cap, everyone gets battle leveled or dropped to 100, so it's even.
Also,
battle level champion points. It's an interesting idea because basically you still get to customize your champion layout, but it gets scaled down to a certain amount, and everyone is basically on the same page. And I don't know if they could maybe keep the champion point what do you call it? Unbalanced outside of competitive PvE and competitive PvP, and then like if you're just running a not a trial, like a dungeon or whatever, it's just whatever champion points you have it's gonna affect you that way. But if you're doing like a trial or if you're in a campaign, it scales your champion points to a certain like average, so that everyone is almost on the same page. Fingrish, I'll let you talk. You haven't talked for a bit.
Yeah, I think they're all good points. I think ultimately, whatever solution you come up with, someone's going to get the short end of the stick. And that's the reality of creating a system and letting it run this long, unchecked. So no matter what the solution is, someone's not going to be happy with it. The ideal solution would be to cause the least amount of damage. The CP cap, again, is one issue. It's one that affects me a lot more, but as a whole, for all of us, as a community in a game, the catch-up affects us a lot more, like on a long term. And for me, that issue is just paramount. Like, it needs to be prioritized and done properly. And I think a heavy catch-up, again, like say 0 to 100 CP, you get, like right now, each CP is going to cost you 400k XP. So like you'll get 5x the XP for CP, like for your first 100 CP. Then you'll get 4x for the next, 3x for the next, or something. Now those numbers can be moved around, but I like having like an average point, and then beyond that, say 500 is their average, and after that, you need to start getting like double the XP for CP. Then you need like 3 times the XP for CP, because then people are not going to go out and grind 2 million AP or 2 million XP per CP. They'll go out and grind for 5 hours and walk away with 2 CP. They're gonna be like, screw it, I'll just gradually get it and I'll go enjoy the game. They're not gonna quit out, they're not gonna be at a ceiling from progressing, because maybe they'll only get over the course of the season like 30 to 50 CP, but at least they have a sense of progression. And I think taking that away from the players that consider themselves very active from an MMO perspective, I think taking that away is going to hurt them. Those people that go and grind, it's a very small number of people, but those people are going to be discouraged from coming and playing the game, and that can hurt them too. They should probably not be your primary focus. You're bringing in new players, and getting people caught up to a general average is the primary concern. I just don't think a hard cap's the best way. I think just putting, don't give incentives to go and grind, basically, once they hit whatever their number is. If 500 is their cushy number, then once you start going towards 600, it just costs you way too much time to go out and grind. It's not worth it.
So you're recommending a soft cap initially instead of a hard cap?
Pretty much,
soft cap.
yeah. Again, the problem here is, there's a lot of people that already got a lot of CP, and sure, that causes problems and it puts them in a huge comfort zone. But there's no, the alternative is the hard cap, where it's just like, listen, we don't care what you did, now everyone's at 500. I just think it's going to discourage a lot of people from wanting to go grind. What are they going to go grind for the next season? And when the next season flips over, everyone's at the cap. I also don't like on the PTS, it's already like that. Like, I don't have much XP beyond the cap, or much CP beyond the cap, but it takes it starts taking a lot of XP to start moving forward. Um, it gets it's at bizarre levels. I haven't looked at the numbers. I'm sure somebody's kind of cranking those out, but I think the numbers just need to be revisited, and what they're trying to do, I'd like to understand a little bit more. But the catch-up's really the main focus, I think.
Someone,
the CP needs to be capped hard or soft. That's got to happen, I'm sure. There's no way around that.
Someone says they have 350 champion points currently on the PTS, and it's going to cost them 460k XP to get the next point. It usually costs 400k, correct? For one champion point.
Per.
So if you're already above like 330, your XP will be reduced. Like the speed at which you're gaining champion points will be reduced come next patch. So to me, it seems like the best thing to do right now, if you have, anywhere close to 300, is to just grind it out to 501, because it seems like if you don't hit 501 before the cap comes in, it's going to take you a while to hit 501. And,
it is. Yeah.
And I think the pace should be slowed down once you cross the cap. That's when the pace should start slowing down, because at that point you can't really spend the points you're gaining. But that doesn't mean you don't stop gaining points, because that way you'll have people hitting the cap at a reasonable pace. And to be honest with you, the best gameplay I'll probably have after the cap is implemented is once a lot of people hit the cap. Once a lot of people have 501 or more, that's going to be the best gameplay for me, because then everyone's going to be on the same page. And I like competitive PvP. I don't like PvP that's decided by whoever has more points or whoever has more passes because of the champion system. So if anything, the catch-up mechanic should help you hit the cap and not slow you down before the cap. It should help you hit the cap. The cap should be looked at as a max level, not as a, not everyone needs to hit the cap, just a few people. We don't want to spend too much time on one topic, because there's a few things. There's one other side of the champion system that I kind of wanted to bring up. It's a little more complicated, so I don't want to spend too much time with it, but I just want to bring it up. The champion system as a whole, forget the imbalance of the champion system. I've played with 3,600 champion points on the PTS that one weekend where they had PTS characters with 3,600 points, just so you can see how a character with that many, champion points plays. And it was the most disturbing thing that I've ever done. Playing with a character with 3,600 champion points was absolutely terrible. I could not understand how, the amount of strength that one character had was bizarre, right? But it wasn't just that. The champion system as a whole has more defensive, properties compared to offensive. So when I went and I fought other characters with 3,600 champion points, it was like we were swinging wet noodles, and this was in 1.6 when the damage was not reduced. It was still at 20% damage. Now people might be saying 3,600 champion points. No one's even close to that. But you don't really even need 3,600 to get all the passes you need for one build. You need around 1,500 or 1,600, and then everything after that is just to buff up your stats. So the idea here is, does ZeniMax have a plan looking ahead to kind of tone down the effect of the champion points on one player? And the reason this is an issue is, prior to the champion system, for example, for PvP, let's just bring up a PvP point. Sorcerers, their weakness was stamina. A sorcerer, if you ran him out of stamina, that was how you killed them. You constantly CC'd them. You eventually drain their stamina. They can't CC break because their weakness was stamina. Assuming you don't have a lot of stamina passes, you're not a red guard sorc. But now with the champion system, most sorcerers can put enough points into the CC break reduction and enough points to the stam regen to where you will never run them out of stamina if they know what they're doing. And that's because the CP allows them to cover up weak spots and blind spots that they would have to deal with if they didn't have champion points to spend. So the CP system, in a way, once you get a certain amount of points, you stop having to worry about certain things like managing your resources and, you know, balancing damage and, you know, damage and survivability. So what do you guys think about the champion system just by itself? Forget the cap, forget the imbalance of someone having 100 or 1,000, just how the champion system is affecting the game in PvP.
I can speak if no one else
Go
wants to
ahead.
go first. I agree with you entirely, especially that Magicosaurus point you just brought up, because I know who they are when I fight them, Cypher. It's night and day. When you fight certain ones, you're like, okay, my strategy changes. Like, there are builds out there and playstyles that hinge on the CP system. That's why when someone had said like a campaign with no CP, there's certain builds that exist in the game today that would not be viable without the CP. So it's definitely impacted things, and I don't know what their long-term plan is, and that's what I think, because right now, I mean, they hard capped after 6 months 500 CP. I mean, if you go out every 500 CP every 6 months, I mean, it's not going to be till like 2019 you can get like 3,600 or something. So I mean, I don't think this is a long-term plan. I think it morphs into something. I think it's kind of reminiscent of veteran ranks, and it's gonna, veteran ranks, they want to get rid of it eventually. CP system, I think they're gonna want to convert it in a way in the future. And there might be some grand scheme in the background, but we don't know it. But I don't think it stays this way.
My thing is, I've been saying this from like Cypher said, like on PTS, it took us about, once they released 3,600 champ points to us, it took us about 15 minutes of dueling to realize, like, I said it, Cypher said it, Super Mad said it and did it. Everybody was like, I'm quitting ESO. No way I'm playing this if this goes live. Of course, the champion system went live exactly how it was on the PTS. And there's some deeper things within the champion tree that really need to be adjusted, like the heavily biased towards stamina over Magicka.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when it's all said and done, once you get enough champion points, stamina builds do 25% more damage, Magicka builds take 25% more damage and do 25% less damage. So that in itself is just like a huge issue that needs to be addressed. But my thing with the champion tree, and I've been saying this for the longest, is it needs to be hard capped, not soft capped, hard capped at around, I was saying 300 champion points at one point. I'm like, it needs to be hard capped at 300, because then you have people making unique builds and doing things and having to make choices. Okay, what do I put in? Do I need cost reduction? Do I need recovery? Do I want to increase my damage? Like, with certain people, they don't have to make that choice. They're like, fuck, I got 1,000,000 champion points. I'm getting cost reduction, recovery, damage, crit damage, reduced dot damage, a damage shield every time I block, and free abilities for dodge rolling, up, down, left, right, hold, start. It's ridiculous. It just makes no sense that it has made it live, and it took literally, like, these people you see on screen right now, it took us 15 minutes to realize that it can't go live. And now a lot of people are really seeing it, but this is an issue that we noticed, like 6 months ago.
Yep.
So it really needs to be hard capped. Like, it needs to be hard capped, and it needs to be hard capped at a fair number to allow players to make decisions on their build. And that's just the start. That's just the start. And then the next step is, okay, let's even this thing out between Magicka and stamina. Because right now, if I had 500 champion points, I would play a stamina build, because my stamina build is going to do more damage and take less damage compared to a Magicka build. So that's how I feel about it.
So what you brought up a good topic discussion, but one which is customizability, like being unique when you're spending your champion points. Initially, when I heard about the CP system, I thought it was going to be a system to where, like, this, for example, I didn't know any numbers, I didn't know what was going to happen. Let's just say you had 100 points, and there were dozens of passives to unlock with depending on how many points you spent. And I thought people were going to have to pick and choose between passives so that they can have a custom CP layout. You would have a custom layout, and it would be like, oh, this is my CP layout for my playstyle. But really, once you get enough points, if you look at the people who spend champion points for PvP builds, most of it looks the same. If you're a Magicosaurus, you put points into your elemental damage, your thaumaturge, your Magic reduction, and your Magicka regen, and then the rest of the points you can dump them into stam regen to cover that. If you're a Stamina Nightblade, you put a lot of your points into Stam regen, Stam cost reduction, and dodge rolling. If you're a DK, if someone's using a one-handed shield, you're going to put points into block reduction. So it feels like once you get enough points, there's not a lot of uniqueness between builds. There's not a lot of uniqueness. Everyone's pretty much putting their points in the same area and unlocking the same passes. Most of everyone gets the 12% crit for weapon or spell damage. Now, no one has to make that decision was like, oh, should I get this one over this one or this one over that one? Usually, it comes down to just, you have to put your points here and here and here so that you can perform well. There's not a lot of uniqueness in the passives to where people have to pick and choose. And once you get enough points, there's no reason to pick and choose. You unlock everything. You just start unlocking everything you need. So let's move on from the CP system. We covered that for quite a bit. It is a big topic, and I'm looking forward to discussing this in the future with you guys again. But let's move on to the second topic, which is the Imperial City and Cyrodiil PvP. Now, we're talking just the Imperial City for PvP, not balance, not CP, and Cyrodiil PvP. We're talking about keeps, sieges, stuff like that. Now, I want to start off by saying that I play this game purely for the combat, and I don't mean the siege combat. I don't mean Imperial City. I mean just the player-on-player combat. My run-ins that I have with other players, whether I run into them on my way to a keep or in the Imperial City sewers or the districts, I play this game for the combat. So, to me, Imperial City, the way I looked at Imperial City, this is for me a new playground. This is just a new playground with different toys and different swings and slides to play with. And there's going to be new kids at this playground that I can, kill. But this is, yeah. Okay, so the playground analogy kind of got twisted up. But the point is, it's new scenery for combat. That's how I looked at it. The sewers, new scenery. The districts, new scenery. Because I've been playing, in Cyrodiil for over a year. And I got tired of looking at Cyrodiil, and I wanted to go to somewhere new to fight new, different scenarios, different strategy. Climbing up different walls and rocks and whatever. So that's how I looked at it. And as of right now, initially, when Imperial City came out, there was a lot of players in the city and sewers to fight. Now, there were the huge Zergs that were running around, and they have their place, but it seems now that a lot of people seem to be leaving the city after they've grinded their 12-hour stones for their new gear, and now they're going back to Cyrodiil, and there's still a few people that stay in the city, but it seems like I have a hard time now finding players in the city and the sewers to fight. And usually when I do find players, it's a large group of PvE players who are just grinding, and they're not even there to fight. Like, I do YouTube, and I record footage, and I try to record awesome 1vx footage, but if you watch my recent 1vx footage, and compare it to footage from before the Imperial City, a lot of the players that I'm killing in the new footage, they're PvE players. Half of them aren't CC breaking or fighting back. They don't want anything to do with what I'm trying to do with them. But a month ago, when you ran to people, who were trying to kill you, and the combat was fun, and it was you can tell that everyone was trying to PvP. But now with the mix up with the PvE and PvP in the sewers, it seems like people go there with different intentions, and you don't get the same fights going on. You either run into like players who are purely PvE and have no idea what they're doing, and they don't CC break after the first stun and you kill them, or you run into like large groups of players who are just packed up, and you rarely get those small scale action which was the initial design behind the Imperial City sewers and the districts. Brian said it himself. They want to help scratch an itch for small scale combat. But it seems like that has died down, and small-scale combat is very hard to find. Now, what could be the reason? Is there not enough incentives in the sewers? Are people, they played the sewers for a really long time. Did they just burn out and now they're going back to Cyrodiil? Is it like a meta shift? What do you guys think?
I think people got geared up and they just don't want to be in the sewers anymore. And I already knew that's what it was. And there's still some groups in the sewers, but I run into these groups, man. They don't know what to do. Like, and you can clearly tell they're not PvPers. So anybody who's in the sewers at this point, they're just in there to get those Telvar stones and maybe farm some materials or something. But that's pretty much it. And I called that. I called that from PTS because, I mean, still to this day, I'm like, what am I doing in IC? Like, what is the point of Imperial City? What is the districts for? Like, why are there districts in IC? Because I was under the impression that there was more to it, that, you know, the districts were basically kind of like strongholds that the factions can hold, and there was incentives to crafting and whatnot within these districts. And then now it's literally you just go into the district and you fucking die, respawn, and you die again. That's all it is. So I spend most of my time in the sewers because I can take Telvar stones from the PvEers. But I mean, this is really not the PvP that I was looking for. However, with the champion point cap, I'm happy that I don't have to rely on that, because, you know, there's always going to be people who want to duel. So, I mean, I find my PvP fixed in dueling, but IC and Cyrodiil to me is just dead.
Yeah, there's not that many players in there anymore.
Yeah, so I think the issue is, and Brian Wheeler said this himself. We were chatting with him the other day, well, a while back, but he was saying, you know, these were his words exactly. Let me let you guys in on a little secret. The Imperial City is really a PvE update, but we just put PvP into it. So it's like, that tells you right there. It's like they weren't focusing on PvP at that point. And us four right here, we're PvP players. We all play the game for the combat. We all play it for skillful, engaging combat, and small scale PvP. And the Imperial City just it isn't that. And like you guys have hit on that. Like it's just the PvE players going in there trying to get their gear, and they're rolling in groups of 20, 30, 50 people. They're going and getting their gear, and then all the PvP players, they're all still there probably, but they're probably just getting swallowed by the Zergs, and we can't find each other to PvP on a skillful competitive level. And it has to do with the fact that the Imperial City's not a PvP update.
Fangrush, you spent a lot of time in the sewers hunting down these PvE players. I'm pretty sure they fear your name. I've seen a lot of your streams of you wiping groups.
Yeah.
What do you think?
This was my favorite DLC. I mean, because the comparison is like Craglorn, so we didn't really gain anything there. This is the first time we gained something. With that said, King's not off base when he says we're killing a lot of PvEers, or I think you said it too, Cypher. There's a lot of PvEers down there. I think you said people that don't know how to CC break. And it's true, and I can't help but laugh sometimes when I'm killing some of these people. They don't have a clue what the hell's going on. And it's a lot of fun, but then when they brought out Imperial City, they also spread the servers out too. So they were trying to deal with the servers lagging. So they made more servers. The first one I started on, I actually intentionally went there because it was pop locked, just covered with, it's pop locked and one bar us. So I said, there's the best place to find people. And it turned out to be like nothing but just a bunch of PvE players all grouping up to farm. And it was it was just, had a heyday there farming them. But anyway, first few weeks were great. What we've got now is it's dying quick. I had to move off that server. That server's dead. There's nothing there. Nothing happens there. I've gone to another one. I get some action there, but eventually that's going to die down. By Orsinium patch, there will be nothing left there. And again, the districts, it's like it's like they created something and then they fired the people that were working on it halfway through the project, and it's just, it never changed. I mean, there's nothing going on in the districts. There's literally no point to the districts, and it's really disappointing because there's so much. There's such a you know a unique structural environment to each district that would be really fun to fight in, and where Cyrodiil has become repetitive in a lot of the outlays that you fight in. That's where I like sewers. It's like, hey, I'm fighting in something new. I haven't been in this room. I can go behind that wall, or I can go up that ramp, and there's just different things that you can do. That change of pace has been fun because I have PvP in Cyrodiil for so many hours. Like, I know everything that I fight on, and everywhere you don't fight in Cyrodiil, there's no point to fighting it, and that's a large majority of the zone. You know, I hope they change some things there, like the cities, and bring us some instance combat. But the whole Imperial City is going to become empty. And I don't know if ZeniMax realizes this, or if they realize, hey, there's nothing left in that area. It's sure it's a PvP DLC, but what's the point of it if after a few months everyone has everything? The people that don't are selling it for dirt cheap, so you don't even need to go there. You don't even need to buy the DLC. It's a great place to fight that's going to be empty soon, and it's tough because Cyrodiil is just awful for me now. I love Siege, and it's the reason I got this game. It's the reason I played other MMOs that had Siege, and sieging in Cyrodiil right now is just awful. You run into a front line, there's 40 people. You can't go to a back line with, a group of 1 to 4 people, which is all I really like to play with, either solo, duo, or up to 4 people or something. And then I really try to cut it off at that point. And every server that has activity is just going to be a Zerg on the front line. I mean, I'm not talking just like 15, 20 people. I'm talking 30 to 40 plus people. And you just get shit frames. It's not even enjoyable. There's nothing you can do, and on top of it, the whole mechanics of Zerg gameplay is just screwed with caps. So, you don't have any ability to do what you used to be able to do when this game came out, which is what I really miss. So, I'll stop going on.
Yeah, I like a lot of the comments that you made there, Fang Rush. I agree with pretty much all of them. You got a different environment in Imperial City. That's what makes it so nice. You got the sewers. It's just a different place to PvP. I don't know, Cypher. You know what I was going to talk about just the whole um, justice system PvP thing. But I think that kind of goes under the future of PvP topic. So maybe I won't get into it. I don't know. Your call.
Okay. We'll continue
Let's
from.
save that.
Yeah, we'll save that for future of PvP. Um, so clearly, there's a consensus between us that the community seems to be split right now. There's in the sewers, there's a lot of PvE players who really don't want a PvP, and it seems like the population is kind of split up between the sewers and Cyrodiil, and it's harder to find smaller scale fights with less players in one zone. Because usually when you have the huge Zergs, like back in the day, you'd have like Zergs of 30, 40, 50 players. For every huge Zerg, you would also have, players of 10, 5, 4, and then, the solo players. But now that the community is kind of split between sewers, districts, and the regular Cyrodiil, the population kind of got split up within that, and now it's harder to find fights. Now, I guess once we go into I don't have a discussion point for this, but I guess this could fall under this: the actual Zerg gameplay in general. And there's a lot of players who do play in a Zerg, and there are reasons to play in a Zerg. It's safe. You gain steady XP. It's fun to play with a lot of players for some people, and there's a big part of the community that plays in large groups. So there's no way you can say, with just get rid of Zergs in whatever way possible. But do you think currently there are enough tools to kind of, if one faction is completely dominated, let's say there's hundreds of players all grouped up attacking a faction, is there enough tools for a faction with a smaller population to fight off the larger faction? And I'm not talking about the point system on the campaign, because I personally do not care if my faction is losing in points. I care if we're winning the fight or not, the day-to-day fight. I fight for the day-to-day. I don't fight for the long term. Some people fight for the long term, and you have different sides of that. But I fight for the day-to-day fights. If I'm logging in and my faction has just like 100 players, and there's another faction with 300, and they have a huge Zerg, and they're kind of just stomping us, is there enough tools? And I'm saying this, there isn't enough tools, but what do you guys think? Do you guys think there's enough tools for smaller groups of players to take out large Zergs and kind of have an opportunity or a chance at taking them out?
That's one of the bigger issues, and this is another thing. I honestly, and I've been saying this on my stream a lot. I think that internally, I think they need to. I'm glad that we're having this podcast so they can listen to us and hear some of our thoughts on it. But there's little things that just should not be in place. Because they say they want to stop zerging, they say they want to get the performance higher. Yet, like you said, it's 100% more beneficial to run in a zerg than it is to run solo or small scale PvP. And one of the main reasons is there's an AoE cap on damage, but there's no AoE cap on healing. So if I'm in a group of 4, right, and I take AoEs from a Zerg, I take 100% of the damage, 100%, because the AoE cap is 6. Then, if I'm trying to AoE down that Zerg, I'm only going to do full damage to 6 of those players. However, their entire group is going to gain 100% of healing, 100% from damage shields, abilities like barrier. There's no AoE caps on healing. So that benefits the Zergs, which is why it's so hard for smaller scale groups or small scale PvP groups to compete up against these Zergs. And then you also have the imbalance with keep taking. Like, there's no way you're going to take a keep with 4 people and there's Zergs running around. So that brings on another issue with Zerg on Zerg combat and performance issues. But I think one of the main things they should look into is AoE caps, because having an AoE cap in this game for damage and no AoE cap on healing is it's just a complete middle finger to small scale PvP groups, because it's basically what it translates into is smaller scale PvP groups take more damage and do less damage to Zergs. And I don't see how that could be fair in any way, shape, or form when the smaller scale groups are already outgunned by the large numbers from the Zergs.
Yeah, so the AoE cap point is, I mean, it's a good point. It's a popular point. But I just don't think. I mean, I think it's a good thing to try, but I'm just not very hopeful about removing AoE caps solving the problem, because I've played previous MMOs in the past. I come from my most favorite MMO in the past, action-based combat game was Terra, and they didn't have AoE caps in that game, and so you could kill a large group with a small group, but in the end, you still have the same problem of if you've got a small group versus a large group. The large group could kill your small group just as easily as you could kill the large group. Maybe that's not the right way to say that, because that sounds like it's fair. But the point is, the problem is still whoever presses the button first is going to win in a larger group. Like, if the larger group, if everyone just presses one button, you're all dead in your small group still, even without AoE caps. So I just don't think that's going to solve the problem, because I've played games like that where they haven't had AoE caps, and it just still doesn't work.
Not necessarily though, because skillful players, like you've seen this, Lefty, from us playing together. Actually, I've gotten some of the best small scale PvP with Fingrush. When you have good players in your group that know what they're doing, and you can play skillfully against larger groups, you can even the odds even though you're outnumbered. However, there's a lot of the times where you go in, you catch a large scale group off guard, they're fighting the boss, you go in, you drop everything, you give them everything you got, but you don't have enough DPS because of the AoE caps. And I've seen this happen in multiple situations where we were fighting large scale groups and we had to back off simply because we couldn't out DPS their healing. And that goes towards the AoE cap, because if we're doing less damage because we're hitting more people, they're doing full damage because they're hitting less people, but they're healing 100% regardless of the fact of how many people they have in their group. And that's the issue. The fact that we do less damage and they heal for the normal amount.
I want to make a clear point that no one here is arguing for a good shot at 5 players killing 30 like most of the time. No one here is arguing for that.
Not at all.
No one wants that to be part of the game. Like, we're not talking about when DKs used to just come in with Bat Swarm and Vampire and just, wreck face. No one wants that type of gameplay. It will discourage too many players. It causes too big of an issue. But what I'm arguing for is there needs to be tools that allow the smaller group, and I don't mean 5 versus 30. We're not talking about extreme numbers, but let's say 10 on 15 or 10 on 20.
Let me say something real
Go ahead.
fast. Sorry to cut you off.
No problem.
I think what needs to be said is that, because when we say a small scale group going up against a Zerg, you guys think that every small scale group should be able to go up against Zergs. When I say small scale groups going up against Zerg, I'm talking about the Zergs that are in IC, and these guys are coming from PvE. They're like V2s. They have a bunch of Templars. They really don't know what's going on. These are the guys I'm talking about. We should be able to kill. If you get a group. I'm sorry, I've never been able to 1vx Cypher and Acha, or, you can't really 1vx good players. I'm talking about the fights where you should win, but there's a technical imbalance within a game that limits you from winning. Because within a game, you should not be able to take out 30 people. And you can't take out 30 people. I mean, if I got 30 people and I'm just in a group by myself, there's no way I'm going to lose to 4 people if there's 30 people with me. It's not happening. So it's, as long as you know what you're doing, that is not an that's not an issue. I'm talking more so in those situations where people don't know what's happening. You catch a Zerg off guard, they don't know what's about to hit them. You catch them sleeping, fighting the boss, whatever the case is. But I just wanted to clear that up. That I'm not saying small scale groups should be able to beat 30. I don't think a single player should be able to 1vx at all. Only time I'm able to 1vx is against people that don't know what they're doing. So.
Thank you for saying that. That's my opinion as well. Like 1vx it was fun and all, but honestly, I don't think it has a place in the game. 1v2, 3, 4, okay, sure. We start talking 5, 6, 7. I don't know about that. Even if the people don't really know too much of what they're doing, like I don't know. I've just seen games in the past, and they've had combat systems like ESO, not the same obviously, but you can't do that in other games. So
I think what
I
I
don't know.
see, they hit it on the nail. It's really like it 1v3 is so hard. Like, do not like I get into 1vx situations, and if there's a Templar there, I'm out of there. I'm not fighting that
Yeah.
group. And then I'll let them chase me, and then I'll fight them on my terms. But straight up 1vx, if there's a healer, there's somebody tanky, there's somebody doing a lot of damage, you're not winning that fight. Unless, like I said, those people, because I get into a lot of 1vx situations, and people don't even fight back. Sometimes they run from me. But that's more so of people just, PvEing. But yeah, like you said, 1vx is not
one
progress.
1vx. Like even though, like most of us, that's a lot. Like for example, I made my name off 1vx, right? But it's everyone knows that 1vx is just one good player taking on bad players because another good player will not allow himself to be 1vx. So they have the tools to shut that down. But what the focus isn't about 1vx, but it's about not being punished for poor play. And that doesn't happen all the time, but a lot of times, whether it's a mix of damage reduction, group size, and other factors that came in, larger groups who are like less organized or not playing properly sometimes will be given get out of jail free card because they're allowed to react slower. They're allowed to bunch up tighter and get a lot of benefits from being in a large group. And I just feel like there's not enough things that counteract the whole bunching up and playing in large groups. There should be more tools that at least give smaller groups a better shot at fighting large groups. And I've seen like some people in the chat are pointing out, I have seen small scale groups of organized good PvP players take on large, 30-man groups. I played with another sorcerer, and we were able to take out an AD and a DC group. No, a DC and an EP group in the sewers. But those instances, they're not going to happen all the time. And if the group size is too large, a lot of the times it's just going to come down to numbers will win. And of course, numbers don't always win. Like there's going to be moments where you defeat a large group of players. But it feels like this patch in particular, it strengthened the numbers even more. The numbers should be strong because they have numbers. That's what I'm saying. They should be strong because they have the numbers. They shouldn't be strong because of AoE caps or healing caps or damage reductions.
Imbalances within the game that support large scale groups.
So and I was honestly surprised to see a lot of new armor sets this patch that buffed larger groups. Armor sets that buff your group's weapon damage, spell damage, armor sets that give your groups shields when you heal them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those armor sets that were put in, but there weren't armor sets that were put in that counteract larger groups. Like if you hit 6 players with an AoE, you do like another burst AoE damage. That way people can spread out more. Like there was a lot of things that came in this patch that just strengthened the larger numbers without anything that came in that counteracted the numbers. Fangrush, I'm gonna let you give your opinion on this topic, and then after that we'll be moving on to class balance and atomization.
I'll try to be quick, although this is the topic I complain about the most and for the longest in this game. We played without AoE caps when this game came out, and I think it was in its best form then, despite any other problems it had. I used to fight with like 4 people and consistently just kill 20 people. To talk about what you were talking about, I played Terra 2, Lucy. But just to keep it on the topic with ESO, it's really a matter of positioning and initiation. Those are the two factors that really come in. It's all about timing. And when you have, and what that's based on, those two factors, is how well your teamwork can coordinate. So when you have 20 people that half-ass their coordination, but they get by because you initiated on them, but a half of them took half damage, that gives them that comfort zone. Because here's the reality. When I go and I bust these groups in sewers, we go in and bomb them with an over, like it's just a surplus of damage, because whoever the first guy is to die, it's very likely he got reduced 50% by maybe my ult, by maybe my partner's ult. One of our steel tornadoes, he took half damage. But that's what we have to do. We have to put so much goddamn damage into them to burn through AoE caps. Now, when we brought this topic up, I can't help but laugh. Like, King's talking about healing. So, Robble, you said in chat, all AoE abilities hit only 6 targets, but AoE damage abilities hit up to 60 targets. As if, like, offense is in some way favored by this. It couldn't be more wrong. I mean, if that's the mentality of that comment, it's 100% off target, okay? Healing is affected. It's smart healing, and that's the biggest thing. I knock people on the ground, and they're getting healed by a guy who has no goddamn idea who he's healing. He's looking at the wall over there, and he's firing off Breath of Life. And some dude behind him who's getting jacked up is getting healed 5 times on the ground by a ton of people that have no idea that we even opened on him yet. Because that's what ball groups are. It's just, hey, grab your healing stick, hop in the party, and pound the ground with some heals. That's what these ball groups are. They don't even have to think. They don't have to get better. They just crutch on this mechanic thrown in the game. And it's just disgusting. The PvP is awful. It kills your performance. When you have 24 versus 24, frames go to shit in the game. And then, like, what does that do for you? When people pop up barriers and it hits 24 people, how the hell, like, you know what a barrier of 30k on 24 people is? I mean, do you know it's like 400k shield damage I have to burn through when I'm doing half damage to a majority of the targets? It's just so broken. If you sit down on a whiteboard, it's pretty easy to see, like, what I really have to do damage-wise to burn through these groups. It's a joke that we actually have to go through that to kill those people. So between smart healing, between barriers and purges hitting the entire group, it's so defensively scaled, and it's just like, why do we even need Zerg busting skills like detonate? You put in detonate and it scales up to 5 targets. The damage increases if you hit up to 5 targets. But what the hell does it matter if after 6 targets you start doing half damage? It just doesn't matter anymore. I mean, the math is just screwed on AoE caps. There's no point. I would love a discussion with ZeniMax one-on-one to try to reason through them. Why do you have these in the game still? The game right now is in its best state to actually remove AoE caps. If you remove them in 1.6, 4-man groups would have been pretty easily able to kill these ball groups. And they deserve it as far as I'm concerned. If you're traveling in a ball group and you get ambushed by 4 people, you deserve to die, okay? Don't travel in a ball group because it's stupid. I mean, it doesn't make sense. If it offers you some advantage, if you bring your 20-man ball group to buff and then you split apart, that's organization and coordination. That's what you should be wanting to instill in your players to see interesting PvP. You have it dumbed down to such a level of stupidity that it makes skilled players trying to fight them just absolutely frustrating. And on top of it all, it kills your performance. It actually hinders the gameplay. Yeah. And when you're killing the gameplay and people say, I'm not going to PvP here, I'm going to go find someone to duel because at least it's fun, at least I can PvP somebody, then you have a problem. And it's gone on way too long. It's gone on way too long. It's the biggest problem in Cyrodiil, and somebody needs to step up at ZeniMax and start addressing this problem. And AoE caps is really where it starts. If not AoE caps, I mean, what is it?
We haven't talked about dynamic ulti regen and how that affects PvP. I guess we could talk about that as an opening for class balance, but it does also affect just PvE combat. Fangrush, that was probably the most well-spoken thing regarding this topic. Most well-spoken point. You nailed. You got it down right there. Like everything you just said was perfect. It was completely perfect. I'm probably gonna highlight that and make it a separate highlight.
That was amazing.
That was really, really good. Now, dynamic ulti gain. I did say we were gonna move on to class balance, but there's just one more thing. This is a pretty big thing that we forgot to cover. Dynamic ulti gain was a tool that was in place to help, in a way, smaller groups take on larger groups. because currently with the static ulti gain, if you have 20 players versus 10 players, 20 players are going to have 20 ultimates to use on their cooldown, and the 10 players are going to have 10. It's just plain simple. It's just math. The 10 players will have 10 to use on their cooldown, and then the 20 players will have 20 in a given time frame, assuming everyone's using an average of like the same cost ultimate. Not everyone's using werewolf, but some people are using ultimates that cost 90, some people are using ultimates that cost 200. Everyone will have around the same ultimate. Now, back before, when we had dynamic ulti gain, a group of 10 players taking on 20 actually evened out with ultimate compared to the 20. They got the same amount of ultimate thrown down compared to the 20 players because of the dynamic ulti gain. They hit more players, so they got more ulti back, and as a result, they had a kind of an equal chance at throwing down ultimates against a larger group. And of course, the larger group, the thing is, the larger group will always have an advantage because of numbers. And I feel like it should just come down to that. If you have more players, you have more resources to pull from. You have more HP, more people casting heals, more people throwing stuff out. But having a static ulti gain, that just gives them another advantage. They will always have more ultimates to throw down compared to a group of 10 versus 20. But with dynamic ulti gain, it made it to where smaller groups were able to take out larger groups because in a way they would get the same amount of ultimate as the larger group because of dynamic ulti gain. Now, this kind of brings us into class balance because DK is the #1 class that relies on ultimate, and it affects the gameplay completely for the Dragon Knight class. But before we talk about DK class, before we talk about the DK, so let's not even mention how this will affect DK class. Let's talk about how dynamic ulti gain will affect just gameplay in general, PvP gameplay in general. We have Left Lucy's dog is replacing Fangrush. Fangrush is actually gone for a 1 minute bio, but Richard, dynamic ulti gain, PvP combat.
All right. So like you said, it does heavily affect the Dragon Knight class, which is something I used to have a problem with, but I don't have that problem anymore just because of the current state of Dragon Knight. With 1.6, they made a lot of changes to DK. They took off, they nerfed reflective scales. They changed the ultimate gain. They made some changes to healing overall. They did some changes to Igneous Shield. Now it scales off health instead of Magicka. So all these changes, and overall, DK took a huge hit. And I think the biggest hit was the alt gain, because Battle Roar is what makes a DK. Now there's some ways to kind of like get DK up to being on par with the other classes, but still, in my opinion, with the current meta of the game, they still fall short because of mobility. So I think if you add in, dynamic alt gain, me personally, I can get over the DK advantage. I think that will give DK some competitive abilities as far as their passes are concerned, and I think it'll complement the game in a better way, especially for small scale PvP, because dynamic alt gain, smaller groups will gain ultimate faster against larger groups, and then you don't have those technical barriers that just completely weigh against small scale PvP groups. And I think we need more stuff like that in the game. So definitely dynamic alt gain, bring it back.
Okay.
Bring it back.
So I honestly, I think I could answer for everyone here. Everyone here does think that dynamic alt gain needs to come back for whatever reason, whether it's because you need to help the DK class or whether it's to help smaller groups against larger groups. That one is a given. There's a lot of topics on the forums regarding dynamic alt gain and how it should come back because it does help the PvP game. The PvP environment is better with dynamic alt gain. It's definitely better. So I just want to wait for Fangrush really quickly. Fang, so we
it also changed it.
$10 donation from J Trost. Thank you so much, J Trost. Hats off to Fangrush for telling it like it is. Cheers. Thank you so much, J Trost. J Trost, my bad. Your name is J Trost, not Trost. So just really quickly, we want to move to class balance, and this is the topic we're gonna like transition into. But I think we all agree that dynamic ulti gain is something that needs to come back to the game one way or another to help smaller groups against larger groups and just to make the overall PvP environment better. Can I just get a yes from everyone? Do we agree on that? Does anyone not agree?
Agreed.
Yeah,
Very
I
quickly,
totally
I'll
agree.
agree. Yeah.
Okay, so class balance and itemization. We're going to start off with class balance. Class balance, we're covering all classes. Now, we'll start with. Let's start with. I'm thinking right now because some of these might take longer than others, and I don't want to spend too much time on one class. I think the one that's going to take the longest might be the DK, so we'll save that one for last. Let's start off with the Templar. Now, I'm trying to figure out. King Richard, you played a Templar, right?
Yes, I have.
Are you the only person here that has played a Templar?
Yeah, I'm the only one.
Okay, so we probably need to cast like some Templar players next time around, but we have gone against Templars, and I played some Templar in the PTS. You have a Templar that you've played. Fangrush, you've played with Templars and against Templars. Lucy, you've played with and against Templars, and we have enough experience to at least cover the topic. Currently, we'll start off with the Magicka Templar, and in my opinion, Magicka Templars, they kind of have the same issue with Magicka DKs. For a smaller group or small scale environment, Magicka Templars don't have enough mobility compared to the other classes to be as effective in a smaller group situation. And I feel like every class should have some sort of mobility option. And in the previous patches, before Mistform got nerfed, and how Mistform was nerfed is before you couldn't really target Mistform unless you tap target your opponent beforehand. So when someone went into Mist, usually players couldn't single target them down. And a lot of the single target things that will slow you down in Mistform are gap closers. Gap closers have like a half-second snare / root when you play with a Templar. I mean, not when you play with a Templar. When you get gap closed by any gap closer, you get a half-second snare / root. $5 donation from your infamous 79. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I'll read your note out in a second. But so with Mistform being nerfed, Templars and DKs who used Mistform as a form of mobility kind of lost that. It's not as reliable. So in my opinion, I think the biggest issue for Magicka Templar, I'm not talking about stamina, because stamina has options for mobility that are easily accessible compared to Magicka. Magicka Templar lacks mobility, but I feel like it might be in a good place, outside of the lack of mobility, because the damage is there, the healing and survivability is there, but they don't have the option to move around as easily as other players. And I feel like mobility is a huge thing. I'll let you talk, Richard, first, because you do have a Templar that you play with. So go ahead.
There's a bunch.
Richard, you're cutting out for a little bit, but you go ahead.
Can you hear me?
You're good now.
Okay. There's a lot when you talk about Templar, and that boils into the current meta with the game. And right now, if you want to run solo PvP, you need to have mobility. If you want to run small scale PvP, you need to have some type of mobility. For instance, like when I'm with Lefty Lucy, he's on his DK. A lot of the times, Lefty just has to take it, and it's nothing he can do about it because his class, his class just doesn't have the mobility. And I think if you remove that meta from the game, and you somewhat, I think it just boils down to the meta. Because if you're in a group, you're in a large group, Magicka Templars are OP. They're like the most OP thing you can have in a group. They keep everybody alive. But then when you run one solo, you don't have any mobility, and they just feel like the worst thing in the game. But then you also have those PvE arguments where you have Stam Templars and Magicka Templars doing a ton of damage and healing. I've seen for the first time Shuyin, which is a Magic Templar, he tanked Vet, White Gold Tower, and healed it. We had 3 DPS, 1 Templar. He tanked and healed it. It was something I've never seen done before. So you have OP setups with Templar, and then like you have this PvP meta that's going on that just makes Templar and DK fall behind classes like Sorcerer and Nightblade. And that kind of brings us into the future of PvP, because I don't really think they can adjust fairly Templar and DK, because DK does have some trump cards. Like, if they make reflective scales, if they give you a morph of reflective scales that works similar to Streak, then you just make DK that much better than Sorcerer because they already have trump cards. And if they do the same thing with Templar, they give them something that gives them mobility like a Nightblade, then you just make Templar better than Nightblade because Templar already has a trump card with healing. So I think it brings us into the meta of the game, and moving forward with the future of PvP, I think that we kind of need some type of small-scale structured PvP where mobility doesn't matter, where, you know, because a lot of the times I'd rather play my Nightblade and Sorcerer simply because I can avoid mobs, for one, and I can create the fights that I want when I'm running small-scale and solo PvP. However, if it's a structured environment where you don't need to run, where you don't need to hide, where you don't need to cloak, when you don't need a
Templars are
ball of
great.
lightning and a streak, Templars will be just as good as any other class, and I believe that DKs will fall in the same category because honestly, if I had to choose right now, if I was going to 1v1 Cypher, Fingrush, or Lefty Lucy, I would want to do it on a DK over anything because I feel like DKs are just really OP in 1v1 situations. However, if I had to choose what class I want to play when I'm running solo PvP, I'm going to choose Sorcerer and Nightblade simply because of the mobility. So I think that it just boils down with the meta of the game, and I think the meta needs to. Honestly, I'm fine with the meta, but like I said, there needs to be some type of structured PvP where skill is involved and not you're not limited to what your class can do. Like you'll be able to do what you want to do because it's structured.
Yeah. You know, one thing I want to say is I played DK for the first 8 months of the game. DK's never had mobility, and I also I didn't use Mistform. Like I wasn't a vampire. I was a regular DK. I didn't use Mistform. I didn't have to be mobile because a DK used to be able to stand their ground. The more opponents you threw at a DK, the stronger they became, and so they didn't have to, you know, run from a fight or stay mobile. They could stand their ground, control their ground. You know, use talents to AoE, use Cinderstorm to tank, use reflective skills to reflect projectiles, and then their dynamic ulti gain meant that the more players that were against them, the more they could pull from their resources. They were able to stand their ground. I've never played Templar, so I know for a fact that Blazing Shield got absolutely destroyed with all the HP nerfs and you know, damage shield nerfs, and Blazing Shield mixed with blinding flashes was a way for them to stand their ground as well. This is like pre. If you don't know what blinding flashes is, you like this was an old ability that Templars had before they. I forgot which ability they got instead. I think they got Radiant Destruction. So Templars and DKs used to be able to stand their ground and fight without the need to stay mobile. But now that they lost a lot of core aspects of being able to tank and stand their ground, they need to move around. And now Nightblades and Sorcerers are overperforming because they always had the ability to move in and out of a situation. DKs couldn't move in and out, but they could at least stay in the situation long enough to either cause some damage or, you know, shift the tides of the battle. But now a DK and a Templar, they either need the mobility or the meta needs to change to where mobility isn't as big of a, you know, necessity.
Like, I think that overall the nerf to DK Templar, it was drastic and it was unnecessary because it wasn't the fact that DK was OP, it was the fact that the other classes were underperforming. Like for instance, when I was fighting DKs back in the day on my Magic Assort, the most viable Magic Assort build was a Destro Resto build, all range DPS. So of course if I go up against a DK, I have no option to do damage on a DK that's using reflective scales, which every DK was using reflective scales. However, when they came out with 1.6, they made a lot of changes to Sorcerer. We were able to get more spell damage. I dropped Destro, went dual wield, and all of my main DPS became Magic of Detonation, Curse, Dawnbreaker, Soul Assault, Crystal Frags when I could land it, but I had enough burst to get through those DK defenses. And I don't think the issue was that DK was too OP. I just think the issue that was the other classes were underperforming. So they kind of need to go and revisit DK and give them that ability to stand their ground again, like they used to before. And I'll still feel fine against fighting a DK because even a good DK that's standing his ground, I know on my Sorcerer, my Nightblade, my Templar, I know there's class abilities within each class that I can counter what a DK is doing. That wasn't there before. and that's why they nerfed it, because it just wasn't there. But now that I think it's there, they need to go back and revisit DK.
So before we leave, we've already kind of left the Templar topic, but I asked Blab what his opinion is on class balance regarding Templar as it weighs up against the other classes, and I really respect Blab, and I'm sure a lot of you guys respect Blab, his opinion on Templar, but I want to read you guys what he said in chat because I really like his perspective, the perspective that he's taking. So this is just verbatim what Blab said in chat. He said, Templars are perfectly balanced. Why? Because they don't have everything. Templars have great survivability, they have good heals, and support/utility. They do not have movement speed. They do not have instant cast DPS. Their DPS is easily avoidable, they have great aspects, and they lack aspects, which is why they're balanced. Not every class can have mobility, and not every class can instant cast heals. Not every class can have great ultimates. So it's kind of, Blab's taking the perspective of, I mean, it's what you interpret as the word balance to mean. If you interpret the word balance to mean it's easy to kill 5 people by yourself, then you're kind of looking at it a different way than what Blab is looking at it. And I think the way that Blab's looking at it kind of supports the whole. I mean, it's just a different way to look at the word. Look at what balance means in the game. And Yiko also said in chat here. He says, I really like Yiko's comment. He said, true balance can kill class identity. You can shift the meta towards more balanced state versus. He said a big word right there. Homogenization. All right, let's move on from that word. But you're gonna have to draw the line somewhere. If you give Templars mobility, do Nightblades get a class heal, etc. Like stuff like that. So like, I don't know. I just like that perspective because I feel like a lot of the time we get caught up in does balance mean I can kill 5 people by myself easier? So it's like
that's what I was.
And he does bring up a great point. Like the thing is, you don't want every single class to be able to perform every single aspect of the game. Like, even though in a way, and I don't mean like every class performing tanking, healing, and DPS, because I feel like every class should be able to perform tanking, healing, DPS in their own way. And every class should have unique abilities. Like the DK has, the way I see it is every class should have an ability that is unique, but can be, acquired in a different version on another class. Now, or class or weapon ability. And what I mean by that is, for example, DKs have reflective scales, right? It's the strongest reflect in the game, but you also have the option to get the one hand and shield reflect, which it's a weaker reflect. You can only reflect one ability, and it's stamina based, so it's kind of limited, right?
And it only reflects spells.
But there are aspects like where, for example, let's see, there's fear. Nightblade Fear, it's a very unique ability that Nightblades have. But if you want Fear, there are 2 other forms of Fear in the game that you can get through, other skill lines. And I feel like every class should have at least the opportunity to kind of attain some of those things in different ways. And even though you'll still keep the class identity, but people who want to be a mobile Templar have that option. People want to, and the main thing for me is major, like the buffs, the major buffs. Forget the, like, Streak is a unique ability in itself. I don't want everyone having Streak. But why do you give Nightblades and Sorks, the 2 most mobile class in the game, on top of their mobility, and you can say Cloak is a mobility device because it helps you get from place to place undetected, and Streak is another mobility device, but they also get class-based movement speed, which is the 40% from Boundless Storm, and then Double Take. Double Take is the Nightblade movement speed. Nightblades also have Path of Darkness. But DKs and Templars have no class-based movement speed buff. And I don't want DKs to be able to leap across the field, even though that would be cool and it'd make me play my DK more if I could just drag and leap across the field whenever I want to, and fly away from battle if I really wanted to. But why doesn't my DK have just like a regular 40% movement speed buff built into one of the class-based abilities that I could use? And why doesn't a Templar have a regular movement speed buff? And maybe they don't need it, but the meta currently asks for more mobility for solo or small scale. It emphasizes it.
But that's a problem with the meta.
I was about to say that's not even a problem with.
So is it easier to fix the meta or fix the classes?
It's better to address the meta, I think. I think the classes are in a good place right now. Like, after seeing this 2v2 tourney, we just did, like, and even in dueling, virtually every class can be competitive. And there's patches where you couldn't have said that before.
That is true.
Agreed.
So that's a good thing for starters. I think the one that hurts the most this meta, hands down, is DK. Because like you said, I mean, they were kings back in the day when this game came out. And I'm going to say, yeah, AoE caps are great and dynamic ult gen was great, but they needed to reform and revisit those numbers. That was the problem with it. And what they did is they put in AoE caps as a quick, lazy fix. I think it was a temporary thing that's just been in for a long time. And dynamic ult gen, I kind of feel the same way, or I don't know. One of them has to be considered temporary, but both of them have been changed for a long time. Now it's the dynamic ult gen that really hurts the DKs, because like you said, that was their thing. They could stand their ground, they could use their surroundings, they could do some awesome stuff, and they were very good in tight environments. And if you took them out of that and you spread out, they'd lose that ability to do what they were good at. Um, Templars are very good. They can do stuff on their own, but if I had to pick any class to go out in a 2vx, it would be a Templar. I don't care if it's a Magicka or a Stam Templar. I'm going to take one of them. And they're the two people I run with. Like, my 3-man base group is a Magicka Templar and a Stamina Templar. And they're my go-to classes to have support. But I really think the DK suffers the most, and it's because of the meta. Yes, mobility is great, and it allows you to do things that DKs and Templars can't. So when I'm down there in like a 4v20 or something, and we go in and we initiate on a group and we have to pull back, the people that end up not pulling back are the DKs and the Templars. They go down, and the other guys pull out, and we try to regroup, and we try to get up what we lost if we did lose them. And that's kind of the reality of it, though. But if I'd like to see dynamic ult gen, but they need to revisit the numbers. I mean, we're talking back in the day, DKs with Dragon Set and dynamic ult gen, they had like a 3 ult cost on bats. Like, they were just slamming bats. So yeah, nobody wants that. It needs to be balanced. So, you know, we need creative solutions, not lazy ones where we just say, okay, AoE caps and ult gen's gone. So everyone's going to gain ult at the same time. Because, yeah, that's not fair. It doesn't make sense that 3 people fighting 20. And by the time you get 3 ults up, they have 20 ults up. You know, how's that make sense? Because you see people, they throw away ults. You'll see, if I fight 20 people, there's 5 or 6
They'll
ults
open with Meteor.
that do nothing. I mean, maybe they'll pop early Templar ult, so they'll drop a Nova where the fight's not even happening. And it doesn't matter because they have so many ults at their disposal. Now, it should matter. It should be like, we're only fighting 3 guys. We need to make our ults count. Yeah, we can drop 5 meteors on each of them at the same time. But that's not happening. And they don't need to worry about it because, you know, no dynamic ult gen. So I think that's the biggest thing and so I think it's a meta issue. And I want to see...
When we talk about the meta, though, we got to realize, mainly the people here on this podcast, Lefty, Cypher, myself, Fengrush, we got to realize that the meta that we're talking about is our meta that we created. Like this meta where you get skillful
What's this weak
players.
shit? You got a turtle in your pocket?
Yeah, like you get skillful players who go out solo, small-scale PvP, and they take on large groups. That's a meta that we created that wasn't... I'm sure they did not account for that when they were making these updates. And I'm going to tell you why. I had a talk with Brian Wheeler before. Lefty, you were there. Cypher, you were there. And we were talking about how large-scale groups get rewarded more than small-scale groups as far as AP is concerned. He's like, well, you know, we have it set up to where you get more AP for killing a single person. And I basically said that, you know, when I go out and kill 6 people in a 1vx situation, I get a nice bit of AP, but the Zergers are getting more because they're constantly killing people. And Brian was like, wait a minute, like, who can kill 6 people by themselves? And everybody in the chat was like, go look at our YouTube channels. Like, we kill large amounts of people solo and small scale PvP, and that's something that is like unheard of in ESO. And I don't even think the developers really realize our meta of play, which brings me to basically there needs to be some type of structured PvP because it needs to fulfill our meta. We can't, because we're asking too much of them to balance these classes and, you know, help us, you know, put our meta within their meta. We're asking too much. But if they add some type of structured PvP, whether it's arena, whether it's dueling,
We'll get into that in
in
feature PvP. We'll get into like arenas because here's the thing. Someone made a really good point in in the chat. He said dueling doesn't translate to open world, and that's true. Because DKs can be great in dueling, and in open world by themselves, they're struggling. Okay. So here's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say Nightblades right now, Stamina Nightblades in particular. They're great. They're great. They're performing. They overperform. I want to say they're overpowered. I want to say they're overperforming. Because I feel like you could pull DK up, you could pull Templar up, and Sorcerer has its Sorcerer stamina based and Magicka based is performing well. And if you pull the other classes up, it's overperforming. So Stamina Nightblades, we don't really have to get too much into Stamina Nightblades. Now, Stamina Nightblade versus Magicka Nightblade, you bring up like that really derives from the champion system and itemization. Stamina builds are hitting harder than Magicka builds across the board. So a Stamina Nightblade versus Magicka Nightblade, if you compare them, the Stamina Nightblade is hitting harder than Magicka Nightblade. Magicka Nightblade might have more utility, but at the end of the day, a Stamina Nightblade who gets marked is dead, and a Magicka Nightblade who gets marked is pretty much dead. So at the end of the day, they both have same weaknesses, but one of them is hitting harder than the other, and they have different utility. So Stamina Nightblade versus Magicka Nightblade, it's not about buffing the Magicka Nightblade, it's just about buffing Magicka builds in general, because right now Stamina builds are performing better than Magicka builds. Stamina builds are performing better than Magicka builds. And that is because champion system, itemization, you're able to get your weapon damage a lot higher and a lot easier. On my Stamina Nightblade, I can get 4k weapon damage with 2k stamina regen and 1.5k Magicka regen. And that's unbuffed regen. But on my Magicka Nightblade, if I wanted anywhere close to 4k spell damage, I'd have like 1k regen because I would be forced to run food if I want to survive. I have low survivability. Like, it's so much easier to get your regen and weapon damage higher compared to your regen and spell damage higher for Magicka builds. And then on top of that, you got the champion system encouraging stamina builds over Magicka builds because there's more ways to negate Magicka damage as opposed to stamina damage. And I'm going to say that Stamina Nightblades, in the current meta, they are overpowered. Magicka Nightblade is performing well, but it's not underpowered. Compared to Stamina Nightblade, it's underperforming compared to Stamina Nightblade, but compared to other classes, I think it's in a good place. I'm going to be covering that build next week, and I'll make my final decision, but I think it's in a good place. And so there's not much to talk about Nightblade. Like, they're in a good place. Magicka Nightblade's in a good place. Stamina Nightblade is performing too much, and that could be due to Stamina being favorable dispatch on top of its mobility and all that good stuff, but they have their counters. Sorcerer, on the other hand, Stam Sork, I'm going to let Fangrush and Richard talk about this mainly because Stam Sork used to be the worst combo ever. It used to be the worst. If anyone mentioned Stam Sork, you were like, what are you talking about? Like, Theorycraft Stam Sork, like, get out of here, man. Like, it doesn't make any sense, Stam Sork. But with the recent changes that have been happening, Stam Sork has, made its way up. It's part of the meta. It's actually very competitive. So, Fangrush, what do you think about the Stam Sork? Do you agree with what I said?
I think Stam Sork's really good right now. People say it got really buffed this patch, and the only thing that we really got was the 20% regen out of the Daedric summoning tree that we can throw on our bar. I think the thing this patch is there's less things to worry about, and basically I don't know, I feel other builds weren't as strong basically. Like Magicka Sork was so bursty in 1.6. Now Stam Sork was too. I played it through 1.6 Stam Sork, and I was able to kill fine with it. I did very well with it in 1.6. It's just that so many things could kill you so quick in 1.6 as a Stam Sork, and you had no burst heal. You didn't have crit surge. Now you don't die as fast on a Stam Sork. You have good sustain added on with the extra regen, and I feel like basically the way things shifted it gave Stamsorks a lot better ability. Just really, it was kind of a meta change. I don't think it's that they buffed them so much, because if you look at things, it's like, okay, what did they buff? And with that said, um, if they went and like nerfed two-hander or something, I don't know what the hell Stamsork would do. I don't know how it would kill anything. I mean, there's just not good burst in the other trees. Putting on dots with like dual wield or something, it's just not viable. Flurry's pretty crappy. So I mean, Stamsork's very good, but they hinge on two-hander, which a lot of people do. I think that's where Stam Nightblade's very strong, where if they nerfed a weapon line, Stam Nightblade would still be in a good place. And they are tough. Stam Nightblade is probably the toughest thing when I face a good Stam Nightblade. It's relevant to point out. If they know what they're doing, and again, the CP really affects them, they can amp their burst and just cover their sustain at very low cost of anything. And I think that's true for any Stam build in the CP system. So you have a decent amount of CP, you can cover a lot, just focus your damage and kind of truck people. So they're pretty good. I would let the others speak on Magicasork over me, even though I did play it forever, and I do understand it, and I know where its strengths and weaknesses are. I'll let you take some, King.
So, well, let me say something real quick. Just
Okay.
It's gonna be real quick. So a lot of people in chat are kind of lost. The chat, or the topic right now is about class balance. How does this class compare to that class? You know, what is this class doing that's better? How can we change things? Stuff like that. And people were saying that the focus is kind of off the wall right now. We're just kind of talking in circles, or maybe we're just hitting over there, talking over here, talking about that. It's a hard topic to talk about and stay extremely focused, because class balance is not it's not a black and white thing. Like, well, we got 4 different classes here, and we've got 2 different types of builds, Magicka, Stamina for each class. So you're talking about 8 different types of gameplay throughout the game, and it's really hard to say like, oh, we need to do this with this class because this is underperforming or that's overperforming, because if you try and change one thing, it'll affect everything else. So it's like, I'm trying to apologize that the chat or the podcast seems a little out of focus, but the topic is about class balance. How does this class compare to that class?
Well,
King, or should you cut out?
I think they understand the topic. I see what they're saying in chat. It's more so they were asking about the meta that we're talking about. And when we say the current meta, what we're talking about is right now the solo small scale meta. To be effective as a solo small scale, either player or in a group, small scale or solo, you need mobility, because that is the best way to survive against the Zergs, the bosses, and the NPCs, which is the meta that we're talking about on why DK and Templar underperforms compared to Sorcerer and Nightblade. And it's simply because of the meta, and that meta is mobility wins over everything. And that's a good thing that we brought up Stamsork.
Mobility and burst. Mobility and
yeah, exactly.
burst.
And what they did with Stamsork is they got a passive. For one, you have a Sorcerer ability slotted, you gain 2% extra weapon damage and spell damage for each Sorcerer ability slotted. So that allows Sorcerer to technically be able to achieve the highest weapon damage in the game. So with that, you allow Sorcerers to hit extremely hard, which is why Fangrush and Sorcerers like Sorcerers like myself and Deltia, we all have builds that hit extremely hard. I don't hit anywhere near as hard as Fangrush because I'm not in V16 gear. But if I was in V16 gear, we're talking over 4k weapon damage on a Stamina Sorcerer. On top of the fact that now Sorcerer, well, not now, it's just something that Sorcerers always had, was extreme mobility. They were always able to get in and get out of a situation. So now they can get in, do a ton of damage, and get out. And if they can't bring you down, they'll kite you and then take you out that way, because you can't keep up with a Stamina Sorc. And it's kind of the same thing with a Nightblade. But the difference between Nightblade is Streak and Cloak. On a Nightblade, you have to rely on Cloak to kind of get away, because if somebody's like, you know, crit surge or crit rushing you or hitting you with ambush, you can't really cloak away from that kind of situation. However, on a Sorcerer, if you're hitting me with ambush, I can literally streak through you, stun you, and I'm gone, and there's no way you're going to be able to catch up to me. So those are the metas that we're talking about. It's extreme mobility, and that's kind of like a meta that we created. That's what I was trying to explain. That's a meta that the top tier PvPers kind of created in this game, and it's the only way that we can fight with the current setup of the game, with the Zergs, the bosses, and the NPCs, is we have to have mobility to create the fights that we want to create. And that's the only reason why I feel that DK underperforms along with Templar in this current setup. But like I said, that's a meta that we created, and if that meta wasn't there, if you were judging off of structured PvP fights, then DK and Templar fare just as good as Sorcerer and Nightblade.
That's why a lot of the times when people ask me like, how's DK? Like I'm leveling a DK. Am I gonna be okay? Like am I gonna be fine? And I say like if you're planning to play, in structured PvP, like smaller scale fights, I mean like one-on-one fights, for example, duels or tournaments, structured stuff, or if you're gonna play in larger scale, DK and Templar are fine. But if you're planning to play in smaller scale or solo, DK and Templar, because this meta asks for mobility, they're playing on hard mode right now. They're literally playing on hard mode, especially Magic DK. And there's a lot of like Magic DK. There's a forum thread that has like 15,000 views on it and like 20 pages of just discussion about Magic DK. Because the way I see it is a Stam DK can achieve the mobility and damage required, but a Stam Nightblade is better than a Stam DK. That's just my opinion. Stam Nightblade for smaller scale group and just solo PvP is better than a Stam DK. One-on-one, it's a different story. There are counters in one-on-one. You can counter your opponent with both classes. But a Magicka DK, on the other hand, every other Magicka build performs better than the Magicka DK. That doesn't mean you can't make it work, but every other Magicka build performs better in the hands of one player. Like if I played a Magicka Templar, a Magicka DK, a Magicka Sork, and a Magicka Nightblade, Magicka DK will perform the least out of all the classes. And there is so many things then that I can go into regarding Magicka DK. There is a forum post on the forums created by Jules, and if someone could link that in the chat, I'd greatly appreciate it. That topic by itself, we could talk about it for hours. The Magicka DK and just DK in general, all the nerfs that have happened up until now, and the state of DK. But I don't want to waste too much time on it. It's a huge issue, and it concerns me a lot because I do want to play all the classes on an equal level and be able to perform well with all of them. But it's too big of a topic, and I think the major point is the meta has gone against DK and Templar in a way. Oh, by the way, I apologize. I apologize, Tier Grants. You linked the topic and you got muted. I forgot that my bot was on hardcore mode. I'm going to unban you really quickly. I apologize. Don't want to link any links or else the bot will knock you out in a 1v1. Go ahead, Richard.
No, I was just saying when you talk about them being underpowered, that's just more so in a solo.
In a small scale, yes.
Yeah.
Not in large scale and not in structured.
Yeah, and you also have to take into account there's a lot of rock paper scissors with ESO. And I think that I really enjoy the rock, paper, scissors because, like you said, Magicka DK will not perform as good as a Magicka Sorcerer. It's just not. But however, a Stam DK will outperform a Stamina Sorcerer. So you have a lot of rock, paper, scissors within the game that brings a balance that people don't really realize, but there is a lot of balance within the classes because of the uniqueness that the classes offer. And I kind of don't want that to go away. So I don't...
Thank you.
I basically what I want is for there to, because like I said, the meta that we're talking about is when I'm in the sewers, Imperial City sewers, I'd rather be on a Sorcerer, Stam Sorcerer, Magic Sorcerer, Stam Nightblade, Magic Nightblade because of the mobility that those classes offer. However, that's only in IC. Now, if it was a 2v2 tournament, I'll play on a DK or a Templar all day. I'll play Templar, Lefty can play DK, I'll support him. He'll tank and do DPS, I'll heal and do DPS, and we'll work together. But it's just when you put yourself in the open world situations for the type of gameplay that we look for, myself, Cypher, Fingrish, Lefty Lucy, we always look for that small scale PvP fix. Like, we can't help it. I don't know what it is. It's just the PvP in this game shines in small scale PvP, so we look for it. That's why we tend to run in either solo or we run in small groups, and which is fine. But I think that right now it's better to run in a larger group because it's more beneficial to you, and that's fine with me. But what needs to happen is that in order for there to be balance, there needs to be structure, and I think that structure starts with structured PvP.
Okay. So speaking of structured PvP, we're moving a little quick. These topics are things that we will revisit in the future because there are so many aspects of the game that we can talk about. We didn't even really go into itemization, like big topics like shield breaker, different stamina sets, magic sets. There's so many. We cannot cover everything in one podcast. Like we're already about to hit the 2-hour mark, and I kind of want this to be something around from 1 hour to an hour and a half to 2 at most. But it's okay because this is our first time. We might go a little bit over, but that's fine. I want to move on from this discussion, and these like 4 discussions. I mean 3 basically: champion system and CP cap, Imperial City and serial PvP, class balance, and itemization. Are topics that we're going to discuss about every single podcast. Like they are going to be the main focus every podcast, and we'll have a theme every podcast with certain things that we want to discuss, like whether it's arenas or other aspects of the game. And I know the title of this podcast is We Are ESO Podcast. Doesn't mean we're not gonna cover PvE related stuff, but most of the players here mainly focus on PvP. So this is basically a PvP focused stream. Now we will be talking about Orsinium and PvE stuff because it does affect PvP one way or another. The itemization affects PvP. PvP players going to the new arena that's coming out. What's the name of the arena?
Maelstrom.
Maelstrom Arena. Like I'm probably gonna be visiting that arena because the Master 2/8 sword from the arena is ridiculously good, and I probably want to use that on a Stam DK or Stam Night Blade. So we will cover that stuff in more specialized episodes. And if you guys want to see more podcasts being done with different people, same people, different ideas and stuff, you can show your support, whether it's just showing up to the podcast, donating, or just telling your friends about it, because the more support we get with this podcast, the more we can expand, do more frequent podcasts, and talk about different things for longer periods of time. Now, let's talk about the future of PvP.
Can you give me like 5 seconds, Cypher, just real quick?
Sure.
I didn't say much at all. You guys noticed during the class balance thing.
Yes, go ahead.
A lot of people are PMing me. A lot of people are asking me, talk about this, talk about that. Hey, talk about DK, this, that, this.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't give a fuck. Like, sorry. Pardon my French. So, a lot of people were saying DK needs a Stam Whip, DK needs this. Nightblade has their surprise attack has concealed weapon, and then, well, they have concealed weapon and surprise attack, their Stam morphs. So DK doesn't have a burst ability in their class. I think that's just the way they wanted the DK class to be. I'm fine with that. I understand that the DK is harder to play right now, and I actually like that. Like, so a lot of people are asking me to say, oh, DK needs this, you guys need to talk about how, or Lefty, please say that you need to do this with DK. I'm sorry, guys, like, I like being the underdog. That's my favorite place to be in a game. So, like, I don't have a strong opinion on balance for DK, and I don't have a strong opinion on it being buffed. Like, honestly, like, back in the day, whenever DK was the powerhouse that it was, I played the exact opposite build of that because I was frankly embarrassed to play the class that everyone was like, that's the meta, you need to do that or you're not doing good. Like, hey, I avoided that entirely. So that's my stance on the class balance thing. I like imbalance. Like, I love to be the underdog. That's my favorite place to be. Because when you win as the underdog, it's that much more impressive, it's that much more rewarding, and it just shows that much more player skill, and that's what I like to challenge myself.
So I want to vouch for Lefty. Lefty has been playing the opposite of the meta since the beginning. Even like he played a DK since the start, but he didn't play Magic at DK. He played a stamina build back when stamina builds were not even the meta. Like, this is way back. Like, DKs were absolutely good in the Magic form, but stamina across the board was bad. So DK, I mean, Lefty Lucy definitely plays the underdog class, so he speaks from that perspective. Some players don't agree with your opinion because some players want to be competitive. They don't want to be underdog, and they want to be competitive. So, for me, I want to be competitive.
That. I just wanted to say my piece because everyone's saying, "Hey, Lefty, you got to talk about
I agree, Lefty.
Because people are gonna look at you and be like, "Lefty, why didn't you say something? Like, I've had my faith in you. Please talk about DK, please." And I'll be the one to say that DK's, in my opinion, they need some help to be competitive. And there's a lot of things that they could do to help them become more competitive. In the hands of a good player, they are competitive. But Compared to like just compare Stam DK to Stam Nightblade. Stam Nightblade is better. Compare Magic DK to Magic Sork. Magic Sork is better. So they need some help. And there's a lot of topics on the forums regarding that, and I've been talking about that all week because I've been covering the DK class. But at the same time, it's too much to talk about in just one stream.
Too much.
So
too much.
we're gonna move on to the future of PvP. Now, we just got the Imperial City PvP quote unquote patch, PvP patch, because in my opinion, Imperial City was just a new place.
PvE and a PvP.
It was PvE in PvP. It was more of a PvE update than a PvP update, and it was fun to fight in new scenery. But now I find myself not even really going to the sewers as much. I'll go to the sewers. Maybe I can hunt some people down for their Telvar stones, but there's not as many people in the sewers anymore. And now I just go back to Cyrodiil to find my PvP action. So, in my opinion, like Imperial City, it wasn't the PvP update we wanted. I know their intentions was to make it the PvP update and make it last for a while, but I feel like the Imperial City, it was a great concept and everything, but it's a PvE zone with PvP inside it. It's not a PvP zone with PvE inside it. It's a PvE zone with PvP inside it. It's more focused on the PvE aspects, and there's not as many players doing PvP in the sewers. It's mainly like above server, you'll have like a big group of 20 running around killing the NPCs, collecting stones. You have some people ganking, but it's not the PvP update we wanted. And we have another update coming up really soon, which is Orsinium. And it's coming up fast. Like Imperial City has only been around for, how long has it been? Has it been a month?
A month?
About
a little,
month, yeah.
Almost 2 months actually.
Almost 2 months. So it's still pretty new, and we're getting another update, which is Orsinium is a PvE update. There's no PvP involved in Orsinium. Like the only thing I'm concerned about with Orsinium, it's kind of just like my personal thing. So this probably doesn't apply to a lot of people. I'm gonna have to go out there and do some PvE to get some of the newer sets. That's I don't really like that. Like I don't like being forced to go do PvE to get the sets that I need to be competitive in PvP. But after seeing some of the newer sets, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to go get that. Like for example, the Master Greatsword, I really want that. So I'm gonna go do PvE, even though like I'm completely against doing PvE. I don't like PvE. It's just not my thing. So, but that's just my opinion. Like, some people are probably excited. They're like, okay, now I'm gonna go do PvE, grind up, get the new stuff, and go PvP and be competitive. Some people like that. So you can't please everyone. You're not gonna please me with this update. Definitely not gonna please me, forcing me to go outside of my comfort zone and go do PvE. But sometimes you got to do that. Like for example, Undaunted. I did Undaunted even though I don't want to do Undaunted. I absolutely hate not PvPing. So, but I did it because I want to be competitive. So, some people like that, some people hate it. That's why, in my opinion, there should be more options. Like this Master Greatsword there should be another version of this Greatsword that you can purchase with Alliance points. Like completely different version, but it's just as good in its own way. And I think there should be more things you can purchase with Alliance points that like you don't have to go PvE to get the best of slot gear. A lot of the times right now, PvE provides best of slot gear. So PvP players who are purely PvP have to go PvE to get the best of slot gear. And that's what's going to happen with Orsinium. There's a lot of newer sets that I'm going to want, but I'm going to have to do PvE to get. And I wish there was just more sets through PvP that I could gain and be like, okay, you know what, this set is really good, and so is the PvE one, but I'm just going to get some Alliance points, purchase this one, and use this one because I don't have to go PvE for the I don't want to go PvE for the other one. So what do you guys think? I know this is supposed to be future of PvP, but the next update kind of does in a way affect the PvP meta because there's going to be newer sets, PvE sets and stuff. What do you guys think about that? The lack of, I guess, PvP, true PvP updates in the game right now.
Well, I think you got a good point that the Orsinium update does kind of indicate a little bit about the future of PvP because it's just, I don't know. I guess to me it just kind of seems like we went all this time without having a PvP update, right? And then we get the Imperial City. Okay, cool. And then a month later they're like, here you go. Here's another update. No PvP involved. So it's just kind of like, it just kind of feels like to me that they were just like, here you go. Have this Imperial City bullshit, and then we're gonna really focus on the stuff that we care about, which is the PvE stuff. And I know, and so I can't knock ZeniMax for doing that because their biggest player base is the PvE players because those are the people that love Elder Scrolls games. But it's just, like you said, I think it does indicate a little bit about, at least it's the perception. It's the perception of what we have in store for us in the future for PvP because, like, what do we have now after Imperial City? It feels like Imperial City is kind of dying already, and it's only been a month. Like you said earlier, you either find no one in the sewers anymore or in the districts, or you find a Zerg. So it's like, I mean, what do we have to look forward to? Do we have anything to look forward to, or do we have more Arsenium updates to look forward to? Because I mean, like you said, or Cypher, I am not excited about Arsenium. I got on the PTS to test it out, right? I spent more time just building my template character than I did actually playing the update. Like, I went to Arsenium and I was like, okay, cool, this map's pretty big. Yeah, cool, there's snow on the ground.
Logged off, cool. Went back to live game.
Yeah, and then I went into the arena and I was just like, oh, okay, you know, I'll try this out. Oh, that's a little difficult. I just need to change my build, but I'm not going to do that because I don't give a shit about this. And then I logged off. So it's like, I'm done. I'm done with Arsenium already. It hasn't even come out yet. I'm done. Sorry. So,
I logged in. I did the arena. I was like, yeah, this is probably fun for some people, but like,
yep.
I'm not supposed to be here. Like, this isn't my thing. So I just left. I don't like. It's another PvE update, and you could say that like, from their perspective, Imperial City was a PvP update, and now they're getting the PvE update. Like, from their perspective, but in reality, they kind of miss on the PvP portion of Imperial City. And now you can definitely see it. If you go to the sewers and go to the districts, it's a lot less populated. More people are going back to Cyrodiil to fight because it's just better that way. The meta in the sewers and the districts, the meta in the sewers and districts emphasizes Nightblades and Sorcerers because of their mobility. They can avoid mobs. You don't have to worry about mobs in Cyrodiil. So now people are just leaving the sewers and districts and going back to Cyrodiil. So kind of we didn't really get that PvP update we wanted. And going to the main, underlying point of future of PvP. Something I think a lot of people would like to see in this game, and something that would highlight the greatness of the combat system, is small-scale combat, structured small-scale combat. Whether it is just the option to duel a friend, whether it is an arena or a battleground. And one other thing, and I know Lefty, you mentioned this before when we talked, which was the PvP portion of the justice system. That was going to force small-scale combat. That was going to force small-scale combat because there's no way you can Zerg. But here's the thing. ZeniMax thought that players weren't going to Zerg in the sewers because, they kind of designed the sewers with intentions of, it being for smaller scale, like groups of 8 or lower, groups of 4 going into the sewers. When they showed the Imperial City demo, it was like 4 players walking around, killing NPCs and stuff, and that's what their intentions was. It was going to be a small scale PvP update, but it wasn't. People, if you give the option for people to Zerg, and people don't want to lose their stones, they don't want to lose it, so they're going to Zerg so they don't lose their stones. Now, the PvP portion of the justice system would have forced small scale combat. That would have been a PvP update. Even though it's technically in a PvE zone, it would have been the PvP update because it would have forced small scale combat. It would have given us that opportunity for small scale, and no one's gonna Zerg. It doesn't make sense basically to Zerg.
Well, it doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. $10 donation
there's
from
other games that do that, and there's other games that have that system. And when they mentioned, because I played a previous game like that, Age of Wushu had a system just like that. If they implement that correctly with the punishments, if they put really harsh punishments on criminals, you're not going to have everyone running around murdering people. And if they allow just a small portion of people who opt into killing the criminals, then you're only going to have small scale PvP with a justice system PvP aspect. There will not be Zergs. They won't form. There's no time for them to form even. You're a criminal, you get in there, you kill someone, you leave, you go somewhere else. That's how it works, and it's extremely fun for people who like the small-scale PvP. And that's like you said, Cypher, a structured version of PvP would be really good for small-scale PvP. I think that's your arenas, and I think your unstructured version is your justice system PvP because
exactly.
you just do it anywhere. You're in the bank, some dude's banking, and you say, hey, screw you, and you throw your rock at him, and you start beating him up. So it's that's this type of stuff that I really like because it's very spontaneous. It's always different, never the same. And Zergs don't have a chance to form.
I just want to say,
it's just perfect.
Thank you, I'm Kid Loco, for the $10 donation. I really appreciate it. He said RIP Orsinium. Fangrush, I'll let you talk. You've been quiet for a bit. And then Richard, you got to speak up as well. Future of PvP. What would you like to see?
Yeah, I know most of you guys aren't looking forward to Orsinium. I'm not like a big PvE player, but I don't mind going to do something that's challenging. I've only spent one night in Orsinium, and I'll go back once. I haven't had time to sit down and make a new set of armor, new template on there to do it. Also, the damage is out of whack in the dungeon. That needs to be adjusted. But putting that aside, future of PvP, I think I talked with King about this the other night, and he had mentioned, and I think he's right. By the time Orsinium comes out, that's in a month, you've already seen how we've had a drop off in Imperial City. It's been a huge drop off in the last 2 weeks. People have really got what they needed. There's just a handful of servers you can go to find PvP inside there. By the time Orsinium comes, there won't be much in there, and I mentioned this earlier in this podcast. So that's kind of a fear, and once it does come out, people are going to be looking to getting the gear out of Orsinium instead of getting stuff from Telvar stones and whatever in the sewers. And if you don't have it and you need to fill in something, there's going to be plenty for sale by that time, real cheap. So going there for PvP won't be a good idea. PvP will be few and far between trying to go to the sewers. It'll just be more of a, hey, I need this or that, maybe we'll go there, if that even. And the districts never had a purpose since Imperial City came out. The sewers were fun, it was a better place to farm, and you could find PvP, and it still is. There's just a lot less of it, but then the districts never had value, and I spent maybe a couple hours total in my gameplay time just being in there, because the whole time I was there, it was just a mess. You know, if you're fighting 20 people, by the time you kill 5 in, those guys are already starting to come back out. It's just like a mind-numbing experience. But as far as the future of PvP goes, and what you guys are mentioning about content development, and you see a lot of PvE stuff, that may be true, and that may be what they do. We might get PvE to PvP content at like a 4-to-1 ratio. So who knows? Maybe nothing comes till like later next year. But with that said, I think ZeniMax, from a business perspective and development standpoint, I think they'd be much better off taking what they have and modifying it and putting incentives in to go do this. So they need to change some things in sewers to offer a long-term goal there. That's one thing that should happen to keep that DLC relevant. That's one. There should be an arena somewhere. And I guess it can't be in Imperial City because they don't want to gate the arena. But that's just got to be somewhere. And that shouldn't be that tall of an order or that big of an ask from the player base that absolutely loves it. So I know ZeniMax, you're watching, and let me tell you, as a streamer who does small-scale PvP, people really enjoy it. When I've gone and done duels, people enjoy the hell out of that, okay? I notice people coming and watching that stuff, and they really love it. And I know Cypher's always done a lot of that. I know King's done a lot of it. I haven't got to see you, Lefty, as much, but I imagine you would as well. But people love the duels. I think we all know that. Like, they want to come see people duel. And ZeniMax is definitely scared to put in arenas for some reason, and I'm not sure what it is. You don't even have to take the step in arenas to say, go to arenas because you'll get this. You don't have to attach gear to it. Save that for a later date until you can actually watch people duel and be like, hey, this is pretty balanced, okay? Because that's what you want to get at first, is making sure it's not out of whack. But you want to put something in sooner than later as far as an arena goes, and it doesn't have to be big. It just has to be structured and make sense. So that's first. The other thing is, like, more than just 1v1 would be like just small instance stuff that's already in Cyrodiil. So we have these towns like Bruma and fucking Shadenhall, and there's those other towns. They could be like little events where something's going on in the town and people got to go do shit. So you send, it's like a 4v4v4 or something, you know, and you go in there. That would be really awesome to see, or 12v12v12, whatever it is, you know, whether it's spontaneous whether people can go sign up. Those are cool little towns to fight in. Some of the coolest PvP I've had, and it wasn't even that it was so such a close fight or a strong one, but it was just so like weird. I run up to Broom and I see 5 questers go into a house, and I go in there and I just caltrops the door, no one's getting out, and it's me versus you 5 guys, and it was just like a cage match, and it was awesome. We're running up balconies, steps, jumping off shit. It was really fun. So like there's cool environments to fight in there. It's already there. So from a content development point, there's a minimal amount of work that needs to be put in to make something that would be awesome, that everyone would love. They really would.
You know, speaking of minimum amount of work, the way I see it in terms of development time, you can spend hours of development time creating a quest. Like, I don't know how many hours. I've never developed anything, but let's just say you spend a certain amount of time creating a quest, right? And players will go through that quest and they'll be done with it, and they'll run through it once. If it's a dungeon, you know, they'll do it for the dailies. They'll run through it until they get their gear, and then they move on. It doesn't have as much replayability. Now, PvP, Cyrodiil, has been out for a year. You know, the meta has changed, and there's some minor changes here and there in Cyrodiil, but it's pretty much the same thing, and it's still fun for a lot of people because of the replayability factor that PvP has. If you put in an arena or a battleground, however much time you spent putting in, people will play that for years. People will play Cyrodiil for years. No one's going to do the same dungeon for years or do the same quest over and over. Once they get their gear, and they're done, you know, they're done. Unless they're trying to do trials, they're going to do it over and over to get a fast score. But you reach the end, you know, the end point of PvE related content a lot faster than PvP. PvP has a lot of replayability. It's different. You know, every single day I log in, it's a different encounter. If you had the PvP portion of the justice system, you'll definitely have different encounters every single time. You're never going to get the same encounter every time, and it keeps things fresh. So when you put in a PvP, like a true PvP related update, I'm talking not Imperial City, I'm talking the idea of the PvP justice system, or the idea of dueling, battleground, whatever, a true PvP update will have years of replayability, you know, to come with that update. And with small development time, you don't have to put as many hours into development to get the same, you know, like say you put 100 hours into this PvP update and 100 hours into a PvE update, the PvP update will be replayed a lot more than the PvE update. Just, you know, that's how it is.
So I want to get kind of just real quick. I like what Fangrush was saying before about the duels and how people really like that. And it's like some people wouldn't even think that they would enjoy that, but they watch some duels and they participate in some duels and they're like, oh shit, this is fun. Like this is cool. And that's the thing that I'm trying to. I really hope. I hope you guys are listening from ZeniMax, because like I think this is the biggest issue you have with your game is you don't embrace your PvP system. Your combat system, you don't embrace it because it longs for small scale PvP. It longs for these arenas that we're talking about, or for the justice system PvP. And I think you guys might be focused on what has worked in the past for other Elder Scrolls games, which is the PvE content. But you're in a new market with the MMOs, and PvP is where it's at. And you guys do a lot of things that other games don't do right. There are a lot of games that fail, and you have done a lot of things with your combat system that they're the reasons that these other games have failed. Like you don't have those problems. You need to give us the content that those other games have so that your game can shine so much more. And this is what I said before. I said this to Brian Wheeler, and I'll say it here. People want the justice system PvP. They just might not know it yet. Like it's a type of gameplay that is very different. You don't find that a lot in other games. And like I said, I keep going back to Age of Wushu. Age of Wushu was very successful with this, but Age of Wushu failed in a lot of other areas, and that is why no one has ever even heard of that game or really even played it. So, I mean, but you guys don't fail in those areas. You do not fail in the areas where these other games have failed, and if you give us the justice system PvP, I promise your community is going to love it. Like, whether or not you think that they're going to love it, I promise you they will love it.
I just want to say,
like, guaranteed.
I agree with you, Lefty. Rage Killin donated $10, and he actually donated $10 twice. First $10, he said, we need structured PvP in order for the PvP community to grow. I played PvE just so I can become competitive and play PvP. We need serial content that condone small-scale PvP and make people spread out rather than zerging. I promise you PvP will grow. Completely agree with that comment. He also donated another $10, and he said, what about a system where you can do small-scale PvP or duels and bet money or alliance points? That would be beautiful in my opinion. That I definitely, I played RuneScape for 10 years, and the best moments I've ever had was in the duel arena, staking all my money. Whether I come out with a lot or none, it was the most exhilarating thing ever. And of course, like having that type of system, we got to do one step at a time. First thing, we got to actually implement a system where people can duel and there's battlegrounds. And then we can definitely get into different, aspects that could, make this better for us. Okay, we are definitely going over time a lot. I want to open Q&A and open discussion. I just want to do like 10-minute Q&A and open discussion before we wrap up. And I want to make a big announcement before the stream ends regarding a new series that we'll be working on. When I say we, as of right now, it's me, King Richard, but anyone who would like to participate is definitely welcome. So 10-minute Q&A, there's going to be a lot of questions probably being thrown at us right now. And I am not sure how we're going to filter through this, but I guess what we could do is you guys can read the chat. And if you see a question you like, answer it. But here's the deal. You get to answer 3 questions. Everyone gets to answer 3 questions each because we don't have that much time. So go ahead, start reading the chat.
All right, first question. Azareth, Lefty, are you drunk? Not yet, but I will be soon. I got 2 left.
Perry, why is PvE at least not represented in this group? So for this first episode, Perry, we covered a lot of the PvP topic because that's what we're passionate about. But for future episodes, we're definitely going to go into the PvE aspects and cover that as well. Because whether we like it or not, PvE does affect every single player. Because I have to go PvE to get my gear, and I still have to be PvE for passes. $5 donation from Flatted Fifth. What Lefty just said is perfect. I completely agree with you. So future episodes, we will cover PvE aspects, but it's not the focus. PvP is the focus of this series, and we gotta get that clear. PvE is the focus of the series. There's already enough PvE related content and people going over PvE content. We needed something that for the PvP community to bring us together to discuss things that are affecting us. You guys keep reading the comments. If you see a question you like, go ahead and answer it.
Getting a lot of troll questions.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm going to answer one. Desolation says, would you like to see Templars and DKs have an ability that provides them with mobility, similar to Sorcerer's Streak and Night Blades and Cloak? So initially, Desolation, that's what I was leaning towards. I wanted Templars and DKs to have mobility. But to be honest with you, that's really not the way to go. The way to go is to allow them to not need mobility to be effective. Because they used to not need mobility. I played DK for 8 months. I didn't have any single mobility boost, but I was still effective because I could stand my ground. Now, I can't speak for Templar, but I'm pretty sure a lot of Templars back in the day, they're running the big blazing shield and blinding flashes. They could stand their ground as well. So to be honest with you, forget the mobility. Forget mobility. They just need to, allow DKs and Templars to stand their ground and not have to be mobile to be effective for small skill or, solo.
J131, do you think they should make it where Cloak for Nightblade stuns enemies who are in 3 meter
I was gonna
who are
take
in
that
a
one.
3 meter radius? No.
What?
Cloak is already ridiculous. We do not need that. That is.
I saw that one, King. I was like, well, this is easy.
No, I don't. Like, I think Cloak is perfectly fine. I think Cloak sometimes works really effectively and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that adds balance because there's sometimes where you get knocked out of Cloak when you feel like you shouldn't. And there's sometimes where your Cloak is just OP and nobody can catch you. So I just feel like Cloak is fine. Don't touch it, please. Leave it alone.
I'm going to answer Mr. Daddy. This is my final question being answered, by the way. So he says, would you like to see PvP, like pure PvP armor sets, like that can only be used in PvP, so that you don't have to PvE as much. And I do not want that. That would make it too much like other MMOs that have a divide between their sets. Like this set is for PvP, this one's for PvE. I don't like that. I like the idea of using armor sets in all aspects of the game. So for me personally, instead of making strict PvP only gear, I just want more gear that I can purchase with alliance points and Telvar stones that are just as competitive. Like I want undaunted versions, like the undaunted sets. I want like different versions. It doesn't even have to be close to what the undaunted sets do, but different versions that can be purchased with alliance points. That way I can actually spend my alliance points on gear that I'll have easy access to. A PvE player, for example, probably does the dailies every single day. I have tried doing the dailies every single day, and I always slack. So it's because it's not my focus. So they have easy access to the PvE gear because they're constantly doing PvE, so they have a better chance at getting the gear they want. I do PvP all the time, but my gear is purchasable. People can just spend their gold and purchase, full piece set of Morak Tong or Shadow Walker, Shieldbreaker, Phoenix. It's purchasable. So there's definitely an imbalance in that aspect because if I was a pure PvE player, if I enjoyed PvE as much as I enjoyed PvP, I'd be happy to do PvE because if I really needed gear from PvP, all I had to do was just purchase it. I don't have to do anything I don't want to. I don't have to PvP to get the gear I need. I could just purchase it with gold. But as a PvP player, if I don't want to do PvE, I'm going to be left behind. Undaunted passives, undaunted sets, master weapons, the newer master weapons, arena sets that you get from the new whatever that arena is called. It's just I have to do PvE if I want to be competitive. So what I want, if they want to keep it that way, you either make PvE gear tradable, which isn't probably the best way to go, but I want to be against that. Or you put more PvP sets that can still be purchased and traded. I don't care if the PvE player. I don't want the PvE players to be forced to PvP. I don't want them there. If they don't want to PvP, they don't have to be here. Like just stay out. And I don't care if they can purchase my PvP gear. That's fine because I make money off selling it, selling Morak Tong and Shadow Walker back in the day to PvE players who want it for DPS purposes. So that's fine. Like they can do that. I just want more sets for alliance points that I can purchase that are just as competitive as PvE versions. Rage Killing, you have been noticed. That is my last question for the night, guys. I wish I could answer more, but I'm gonna let these guys.
I'll take next, I guess. I have a bunch here. I'll grab some. Arduous asks, Fingers, what's your take on the justice system? You seem to have a lot of good ideas, but do you think that's the right direction? And I didn't get to talk on it because I'd like to. I agree with a lot of what Lefty said. Those are some cool ideas, stuff I haven't thought about too much, and I liked a lot about what he said. I do think they have the justice system, it's still moving. At what speed, I don't know. I imagine we'll see that in line with Dark Brotherhood in a future add-on. It won't fill everything for PvP, but again, it offers a unique angle on PvPing, which is something that I think the game's really lacking right now. All it has is just, here's Cyrodiil. Go get him, boys. And I mean, we need a little more than that, and that's when you have these different avenues of, well, I like that sieging, or I like to do this, dueling, or, something. Justice system's almost a nice medium, too, between them. So, I don't know. I don't have many additional thoughts on it. I know they're coming out. I mean, I know they're planning to take that next step with it. As to when, I don't know. We heard a lot about that a few months ago, and we haven't heard a bit in a while. Maybe they'll touch on that in a future thing. Orsinium's their focus, so I wouldn't expect to hear much until it's released. But after that, I imagine we'd hear something. But I hope to. I look forward to it. Anything PvP related, I'm looking forward to it. So I'll stop.
$20 donation from Old Timba. He says, "Sweet cast, guys. Would watch again." Thank you so much, Old Timba. And again, thank you for the support, guys. If you would like to support the podcast, type in !tip in the chat, and you can throw a donation at the podcast. All the podcasters will be getting a split of that, and we'll be using the money to improve the podcast as well as expand, probably do this more often and, just have better, more focused conversations about specific things. Whether we do it every week, every other week, once a month, it all depends on the support we get from you guys. So !tip in the chat if you would like to support the podcast.
Yeah, so Fang Rush, I liked your point about the justice system. I do. So I really want to know. Like, I know ZeniMax is in here. I would really like, because we talked with Brian Wheeler a while back. It was a couple months after they talked about, hey, we're gonna do PvP justice system, and then they were like, oh, we're gonna roll it out in 2 phases, and then we don't hear anything about this PvP system. So, and we heard of some of the issues that they were having with the PvP justice system implementation from Brian Wheeler, and he was saying these are technical, like, development level issues where, like, if someone was crafting while you killed them, then they would lose all their materials and the item that they were trying to craft and stuff like that they needed to fix. But it sounded like they were trying, but I have no idea where they're at. So it would be really nice if we could hear something about it. But anyway, the Weak-Minded was asking, this is my second question. The Weak-Minded was asking, Justice System PvP, how much do you think low levels will enjoy the PvP Justice System when they have V16s griefing them because of easy ganks? So this is an excellent question. This is something that Age of Wushu did really good. So the point of the Justice System PvP, if you allow people to murder other players in the open world, they must be punished. The way Age of Wushu punished people who did this was they gave them jail time, which you're in a cell, literally in a cell. You can't use any of your abilities. You can't do anything. The only thing you can do is type. That is it. And you're stuck in jail. Well, there's a little bit more to it, but anyway, you're in jail and it's for real time. Like you'll get hours of real time jail time. Like 3 hours of you have to be logged in until your character can exit jail. And what you can do is you can increase the penalty, increase the jail time based on the gap between the level of the player that you murder. So if you're a V16 new level and you murder a level 10, you're going to jail for 5 hours real time, as opposed to if you're V16, you murder another V16, that's 15 minutes. So it's like, it's stuff like that they can implement that would extremely deter people from wanting to gank low-level players. And honestly, the way that it worked in Age of Wushu, you didn't see low levels getting ganked by high levels because of the way they implemented the punishment system for the Justice System PvP.
I have one from Gamos270. Console needs better UI. This game is about buffs, debuffs, dots. We don't even know what we're doing.
They're getting it. They're getting it.
Oh, are they really? I messaged him and said I don't think it's gonna happen.
No, console players are getting damage indicators and some sort of buff indicator, along with some numbers. Like they're getting
really
it up into the
them.
UI, so it's definitely it's
there
happening.
is a UI update coming for console players because those are really important. So there you go. That question's answered.
So people are saying that I think people are commenting on the hours of game time or jail time. Sorry. Ooh, that bourbon. All right. Anyway, so people are saying, well, that's going to destroy the game, stuff like that. Well, okay. So first of all, they don't have to do it with hours. All they have to do is just make the punishment more drastic for killing people who are lower level than you. But yeah, they could do gold, something like that. But anyway, it's not going to destroy the game because only the hardcore PvPers are going to accept that risk. So it's like, it's going to be me. I don't give a fuck how long you put me in jail. I'm going to kill whoever I want, whenever I want, if you give me a Justice System PvP. I'm not going to gank low levels because I don't particularly like to do that because I think that's unfair. But the point is, there's only going to be a small portion of the player base that's going to accept that punishment level. For the Justice System PvP, so it's not going to destroy the game. The other thing that you'll have is you'll have another group of players. So you have criminals, and then you have people who uphold the law, and you can opt in to uphold the law, and then you can kill the criminals, and then you get gold for doing it. It doesn't destroy the game, I promise. There's going to be a lot more people that are the police or the constables that uphold the law compared to the people who are the criminals, because the criminals are the one who those are the people who really just want the PvP. They want it now. They don't care if they have a penalty. They're going to do it. And everyone else, I mean, you don't have to participate if you don't want to. It's an opt-in system. That's all.
I got one more from Don't Touch My Thigh. He asks, or she.
Don't touch it.
Do you think the block, reflective scales, and dodge roll nerfs should have ever happened? Yes, I think that block should have been nerfed. I think they nerfed it incorrectly, however. They kind of band-aid fixed it, in my opinion. I don't think the issue was people perma-blocking. I don't think that was the issue. I think the issue was with how much damage was being mitigated while blocking. So I think that should have been addressed, because even now, people are still pulling out those sword and board two-hander builds and blocking a ton of damage. Reflective scales, no, they should have never touched it. If you are not smart enough to realize that this guy has red fiery a red fiery aura around him, you should know not to throw spell projectiles at him or any type of projectile at him because it will be reflected at you. So they nerfed it, and it kind of rewards people who are unskillful. I don't think that should have been nerfed in any way, shape, or form. They should have left reflective scales exactly where it is or where it was. And then dodge roll, yes, dodge roll. They hit it on the money. Perfect. Dodge roll was the perfect nerf. People were perma rolling, getting away from Zergs, just rolling through Zergs. I've seen it happen. I played with people who used to do it. It was completely ridiculous, and they did a really good job with rolling. You can still roll a lot in this update, but it is not broken. So dodge roll, good job, Dissolves. They really fixed that correctly. But reflective scales, they shouldn't have touched it at all. And block was a band-aid fix in my opinion.
Fingrush, I'm gonna let you answer one more question, and then I'm gonna make an announcement, and we'll be wrapping up the podcast.
Okay. This guy keeps asking, why do you think Vox is asking, why do you think Alliance rank is not account-wide? Do you think this would be a good thing to include in the future? I don't know why it's not. I'm not sure if any of you guys know an issue with it. Part of the reason I never wanted to reroll, but not really. My biggest reason is I just like to play just Fangrush, but I'd be like those Alliance skills. They're less meaningful now, but they were something to worry about in Open Cyrodiil, I think, more before. But I don't know why the Alliance rank wouldn't carry over if I made another DC, if I made a... Everyone's been asking me to make like a DK or something, which I wouldn't mind to play. I'm a lot like Lefty. I'd like to do an underdog thing. That's why when Stam Circa 1.6, so like everyone says it's shit. So I'm like, alright, let's do it. And and we made something happen with it, you know. We made the fastest guy on the battlefield, and you play to its strengths, and you try to cover your weaknesses, and that's how you play everything, though. But yeah, so I don't know why it's not, and I don't know if there's a problem anyone else has. I wouldn't mind seeing Alliance ranks move from one character to another, because those progressions are insane. They're absolutely insane, and unless you're in one of those big ball groups, rolling around, you know, 8 hours a night or something, just cruising through the front line, you're probably not going to be all the way up there in those Alliance ranks.
All right. I want to thank everyone who tuned into the stream. That will conclude our Q&A. We could do a longer Q&A, but we already went over time with today's broadcast. And maybe 2 hours is a good mark to aim for the next one. But today we've already been going for 2 hours and 40 minutes, so it's definitely a lot over time. This will be posted on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/cypherpk, and I'll probably create some highlights of like strong points that were made during the podcast. But I'll be posting the entire podcast onto YouTube if you missed it, so you can go rewatch it or rewatch certain segments of it. So youtube.com/cypherpk if you want to get that. I also want to make a big announcement that there is a new series that will be made. This series is called Gladiator, and just to give you guys a small summary, this is just an announcement, no official date or launch, but you will be seeing a trailer for this series coming soon enough, once we get enough people to participate. And basically what it's going to be, just to summarize it, it's going to be, you know, experienced players like me, you know, King Richard, Lefty Lucy, or Fangrush. As of right now, I've talked with King Richard about it. Me and him have talked about it, so we're going to get other experienced players involved as well. But we're going to take experienced players, and they're going to have 3 students that they're going to train, and the series is going to go through the training process, and then we're going to have like a tournament where like I, you know, throw out my 3 players, and we do 3-on-3 fights, 1-on-1 per student.
That's
and
awesome.
It's kind of like someone trains their 3 students, and you go up against like Lefty Lucy students or King Richard students. So it's going to be like a sensei mentoring like series with heavy focus on PvP, and you know, we'll be picking out players and picking out, you know, students and teachers. But it's going to be a pretty big series that's coming. That's going to be coming on YouTube. It won't be streamed, but it's going to be recorded and posted on YouTube. It's going to be really professional, and it's basically like a Pokemon system. Like I'm going to train 3 players. King Richard's going to train 3 players. Lefty Lucy and Fangrush will also train 3 players, for example. And we were going to put them up against each other and see whoever is the best, like, quote-unquote sensei. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a fun little series we're going to be doing. And we'll be having a trailer coming out really soon, a pretty badass trailer that we're going to be working on. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. I just wanted to announce the series. There's going to be a trailer coming up soon, so look out for it. If you would like to donate towards the podcast, type in !tip. All donations received will be going out to the casters and towards improving this podcast. And if you want to follow Fangrush, King Richard, and Lefty Lucy, their Twitch information, if you type in !casters in the chat, you'll be linked to their Twitch. And King Richard also makes videos, and so does Lefty Lucy. Fangrush, I'm not sure if you have a YouTube channel, but you can check out his Twitch page.
I do.
Do you post on it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Fangrush has a YouTube channel as well, and we're gonna, all that is linked, but I'm gonna at least link you guys their Twitch page. !casters in the chat, so you can get all the casters' Twitch. Follow them, show them some love. All these guys are very experienced. They know what they're talking about. I've been playing these guys from the start. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys have been wonderful. Thank you, ZeniMax. I'll see a lot of ZeniMax developers in the chat and community managers. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to our feedback. That's the main purpose. We want to, get our feedback across from the community to you guys in a very organized manner. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast. Are any of you guys streaming later tonight?
Oh yeah, me and Richard about to start.
I think these two are already halfway to streaming for the evening. I'm gonna be right there with them though.
So Fangrush, King Richard, and Lefty Lucy will all be streaming later tonight. I won't be, but I'll see you guys tomorrow at my regular time, 3 p.m. U.S. Central. So make sure you guys tune into their streams. They're gonna be getting wasted and doing some PvP. So check them out. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I really appreciate all the support, everyone who showed up, a lot of people, a lot of faces. And hopefully we can do this podcast more often. Like, I would love to do this once a week, but that might not be feasible. But hopefully we could do it frequently and get together.
Like to thank you for putting it together, Cypher. This was a great
thank you,
idea
Cypher.
under short notice. This was awesome. For the first one too, topics were great. The discussion was great. This is a great idea. People would love this. I enjoyed doing this too. So thanks again for doing this, man. This is good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, we definitely have to keep it going.
I'm in once a week, twice a week, whatever you want, dude.
I don't think it's gonna be that frequent, but we'll try to get it as frequent as
bi-weekly
possible
or weekly, whatever you want to do.
Where it's
Hit me up.
relevant.
Yeah, we'll
But
try to do it
this
as
is
much as we
something
can.
That must happen. It's really good, really good.
Definitely.
It's been too long without something like this. We needed something like this for a while. I mean, it's good. It's really good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
So thank you, Cypher, and thank you all for tuning in.
All right, guys. Really appreciate it. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure you tune into these guys' stream. They're going to be live tonight doing some PvP. Everyone's going to be live. Fangrush, King Richard, and Lefty Lucy. So check them out. And I'll be live tomorrow at 3 p.m. U.S. Central. And we look forward to doing another episode. If you missed the episode, this will be posted on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/CypherPK. It'll be posted. The full episode will be posted there. You can go rewatch it. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to follow everyone on the cast. And I'll see you guys next time.
Good night, everyone.
See you guys.
See you.